I'm about to lose everything. Adrian Cross stared at the contract on the table, one signature away from disaster. The translator smiled. The lawyers nodded. Everyone in that private dining room thought the billionaire was about to secure his empire. But standing against the wall, holding a tray of untouched champagne, a waitress named Emma Vale knew the truth. She knew what the French words really meant. She knew they were lying. And in 3 seconds, she would have to choose: stay invisible and safe, or speak up and risk everything. What she did next didn't just save a company. It changed 2 lives forever. If you want to see how a single moment of courage can rewrite someone's entire story, stay with me until the end. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The rain hit the windows of the Celestine Club like accusations. Emma Vale kept her eyes down, her hands steady on the silver tray, her entire body practiced in the art of being invisible. She'd perfected it over the years, the way to move through a room full of powerful people without disturbing the air, without drawing a single glance, without reminding anyone that she was human and not just part of the furniture. Room 7 was the worst. Not because of the guests, though they were always demanding. Not because of the tips, though they were always insulting. Room 7 was the worst because it was where people made the kind of deals that changed lives. And Emma had learned a long time ago that watching other people win only reminded you how much you'd lost. She pushed through the service door with her hip, balancing 3 bottles of mineral water that cost more than her weekly rent. The room smelled like leather and expensive cologne, and the particular kind of confidence that came from never having to check a price tag. 8 men sat around a table made of wood so dark it looked black. At the head sat Adrian Cross. Emma had served him before. Everyone had. He came to the Celestine once a month, always room 7, always with people who looked nervous in his presence. He was younger than most billionaires, 32, maybe 33, with the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers except for his eyes. His eyes were tired, the eyes of someone who'd been playing a game for too long but couldn't afford to lose. "Gentlemen," Adrian said, his voice carrying that smooth American authority that came from private schools and legacy admissions, "I think we've covered everything." Emma set the first bottle down in front of a man with silver hair and a Swiss watch. He didn't look at her. They never did. "Almost everything," the silver-haired man said. His accent was French, elegant, old money. "Just the signature." Adrian nodded. He looked relaxed, but Emma had waited enough tables to read the small signs, the way his jaw tightened just slightly, the way his fingers drummed once against his thigh before going still. He was nervous, trying not to show it. "Mr. Laurent," Adrian said, "before we finalize, I'd like my legal team to review one more time." Of course, of course." Laurent spread his hands in a gesture of infinite patience. "But as we've discussed, the terms are extremely time-sensitive. The market window we're operating in closes at midnight. After that," he shrugged, "the opportunity disappears." Emma moved around the table, setting down bottles, refilling glasses no one had touched. She was a ghost, a useful ghost. "I understand," Adrian said. "That's why I brought Marcus." He gestured to a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses sitting 2 seats down. Marcus looked like every corporate lawyer Emma had ever seen, sharp suit, sharper expression, and the permanent slight frown of someone who trusted nothing and no one. "I've reviewed the English version thoroughly," Marcus said, tapping a thick document in front of him. "Everything appears standard. The partnership structure, the profit-sharing model, the exit clauses, all industry standard." "Excellent," Laurent said, smiling. "Then we can proceed." That's when the translator spoke. Emma had barely noticed him until that moment. A small man in his 50s sitting slightly behind Laurent, holding a tablet and a folder of papers. He'd been silent the entire time, which should have been her first warning. Translators were usually busy, constantly clarifying, checking, confirming. This one had just sat there, waiting. "Mr. Cross," the translator said in careful English, "if you're ready, I can walk you through the French version one final time, just to ensure absolute clarity." "That's not necessary," Marcus said. "I've had it reviewed by our French legal consultant. It's a direct translation." The translator nodded slowly. "Of course, but perhaps Mr. Cross would feel more comfortable hearing the key points in both languages. For his peace of mind?" Adrian considered. Emma watched him from the corner of the room, her tray empty now, her official reason for being there expired. She should leave, go back to the kitchen, stay invisible. But something made her stay. "Sure," Adrian said finally. "Let's hear it." The translator opened the folder. He began reading in French, his voice smooth and professional, occasionally pausing to provide what he claimed was the English equivalent. Emma's hand tightened on the tray. She'd grown up in foster homes across Massachusetts, moved from family to family like furniture nobody wanted. But one of those families, the Duchamps, a retired couple in their 70s, had been French. They'd spoken it at home, taught Emma because they thought languages were important, because they thought education might be the one thing nobody could take from her. They'd been wrong about that. Life had taken plenty, but the language had stuck. And now, standing against the wall in room 7, Emma listened to the translator speak and felt her stomach drop. Article 12, the translator said in French, states that operational control transfers to the senior partners of Laurent Holdings following a transition period of 12 months, during which Mr. Cross maintains nominal authority but no actual decision-making power. Then he looked at Adrian and said in English, Article 12 confirms that you retain full operational control while the senior partners provide strategic advisory support. Emma's breath caught. He was lying, not bending the truth, not spinning corporate language, actively, deliberately lying. She looked around the room. Nobody else had noticed. Marcus was checking his phone. Adrian was listening, but his French was clearly minimal. The other men at the table were Laurent's people. They knew exactly what was happening. The translator continued. Article 15 indicates that all intellectual property, patents, and proprietary technology become jointly held assets under Laurent Holdings' primary stewardship, with Mr. Cross retaining a minority stakeholder position. In English, Article 15 protects your intellectual property through a joint custody arrangement that prevents any single party from monopolizing the patents. Emma's hands had gone cold. This wasn't a partnership. It was a takeover. A carefully constructed trap that would give Adrian Cross exactly 12 months to watch everything he'd built get transferred piece by piece into Laurent's control. And in 12 months, when he finally understood what had happened, he'd have no legal recourse because he'd signed away his rights in a language he didn't understand. She should stay quiet. It wasn't her business, wasn't her world. She was a waitress, not a lawyer, not a businesswoman, not anyone who had any right to speak in a room like this. But the Duchamps had taught her something else too. They'd taught her that silence was how bad people won. The translator was moving to Article 18. Something about liquidation rights that Emma knew meant Adrian would lose everything if the company ever faced financial difficulty. She stepped forward. "Excuse me." Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. Not commanding, not confident, just present. Everyone turned, 8 pairs of eyes landing on her like spotlights. She felt her face flush, felt every instinct screaming at her to apologize and back away and return to being invisible. Adrian looked at her with mild confusion. "Yes?" Emma's throat was dry. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt." "Then don't," Marcus said flatly. Laurent was watching her with the expression of someone who'd just noticed an insect on his dinner plate, mildly annoyed, wondering who was responsible for the lapse in quality control. Emma looked at Adrian, only at Adrian. "If you sign that contract," she said, "you're giving away your entire company." The room went very still. Then Laurent laughed. It was a good laugh, warm, indulgent, the laugh of someone so secure in their position that they could afford to be amused by interruptions. "I appreciate your concern," he said to Emma with exaggerated politeness, "but I assure you, these are simply translation technicalities." "They're not technicalities." Emma's voice was stronger now. Fear was being replaced by something else. Anger, maybe, or just exhaustion with being dismissed. "He's lying about what the French version says." Marcus stood up. "Okay, that's enough. Security—" "Wait!" Adrian held up one hand. He was looking at Emma now with complete focus. "What did you say?" Emma swallowed. "The translator. He's not translating correctly. The French version of the contract says something completely different from what he's telling you." "That's absurd," the translator sputtered. "I've been a certified translator for 20 years. Article 12, Emma said, looking at him. "Read what it actually says." The translator's face went pale. Adrian stood up slowly. He was tall, Emma hadn't noticed before because he'd been sitting the whole time, tall and suddenly very present in a way that made the entire room shift its weight. "You speak French," Adrian said to Emma, not a question. "Yes." "How well?" "Fluently." Laurent was no longer smiling. "Mr. Cross, this is highly irregular. You can't seriously be suggesting that we halt a multi-million-dollar negotiation because a waitress—" "That's exactly what I'm suggesting." Adrian's voice hadn't gotten louder, but somehow it filled the entire room. "Marcus, get our French legal consultant on the phone. Now. I want every single article of this contract read out loud in both languages and verified independently." "Adrian, the market window," Laurent started. "Fuck the market window." Adrian didn't look at him. He was still looking at Emma. "If this contract is what you say it is, then there is no deal. And if you're wrong—" He paused. "Why would you risk saying something like this if you're wrong?" Emma didn't have a good answer for that. She'd spent 30 years learning to stay quiet, stay small, stay safe. Nothing about this was safe. She stopped, started again. "I heard what he said, in both languages. They don't match." Adrian nodded once, then he turned to Marcus. "Make the call." The next 40 minutes were the longest of Emma's life. Marcus had the French consultant on speakerphone, a woman named Delacroix, who sounded irritated at being called at 10 p.m. Paris time, but became significantly less irritated when she understood what was being asked. Article by article, the translator was forced to read the French version while Delacroix provided the real English translation. With each article, the room got quieter. Emma had been right, not just about a technicality or a mistranslation, about everything. The contract was a masterpiece of corporate theft, designed to transfer complete control of Adrian's company to Laurent Holdings while making it look like a standard partnership agreement. By Article 20, Laurent and his team had stopped protesting and started preparing to leave. By Article 25, Adrian's lawyer looked like he wanted to throw up. By the final article, Adrian just looked tired. "Get out," he said quietly. Laurent stood. His face had gone from friendly to carved from ice. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Cross. This offer won't come again." "I certainly hope not." Adrian's voice was flat. "Because if it does, I'll have my actual lawyers draft charges for attempted fraud. You have no proof of intent. I have a recorded phone call with an independent translator confirming that every word out of your associate's mouth was a lie." Adrian gestured to Marcus's phone, still recording. "Get the fuck out of my building." Laurent left. His team followed. The translator looked like he wanted to say something but thought better of it and hurried after them. The door closed, and then it was just Adrian, Marcus, and Emma. Marcus broke the silence first. "Holy shit!" "Yeah." Adrian sat down heavily. He looked at Emma, really looked at her for what felt like the first time. "What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Vale." "Emma Vale." He repeated it like he was committing it to memory. "How long have you been working here?" 3 years. "And you speak French fluently?" "Yes." "What else?" She blinked. "What?" "What other languages?" Emma hesitated. She'd learned to downplay this, to make herself smaller, but something about the way Adrian was looking at her made lying feel impossible. "Spanish, Italian, some German, Portuguese, and Mandarin, though my Mandarin's not great. 7 languages. Marcus stared at her. "You speak 7 languages and you're working as a waitress?" Emma felt the familiar shame creep up her neck. "I don't have a degree. I taught myself mostly. Nobody's going to hire a translator without credentials." "I'm hiring you," Adrian said. The words hung in the air. Emma laughed. It came out nervous, disbelieving. "As what?" "I don't know yet." Adrian stood, started pacing. He had that energy now, the kind Emma had seen in certain guests when an idea took hold. "But you just saved me from losing everything I've built, and you did it because you happened to be in the room and you gave a shit enough to speak up. Do you know how rare that is?" You were just doing the right thing when it would have been easier and safer to stay quiet." Adrian stopped pacing, looked at her. "Marcus, clear my morning tomorrow. I want to meet with Emma and go through everything we know about Laurent's operation. If he tried this with me, he's trying it with others." "Adrian," Marcus said carefully, We should probably involve the actual legal team. We will. But Emma's going to be there too. Adrian turned back to her. Can you come back tomorrow, 10 a.m.? Emma's mind was spinning. I have a shift. Call in sick. I can't just... I'll pay you for the shift, plus a consultation fee. He named a number that was more than Emma made in a month. She stared at him. For what? I'm not qualified to... You're qualified enough to see what my $50,000 lawyers missed. Adrian's voice softened slightly. Look, I don't know what your situation is. I don't know what you're dealing with or why someone with your skills is working here. But I know talent when I see it, and I know courage, and you just demonstrated both. So I'm asking, will you come back tomorrow and help me figure out what the hell just happened and how to make sure it doesn't happen again? Emma should say no. She should walk away from this. Go back to her studio apartment in Dorchester. Go back to her shifts at the Celestine. Go back to the safe, small life she'd built out of the wreckage of her childhood. But she looked at Adrian Cross, this billionaire single father who everyone said was ruthless and brilliant and untouchable, and she saw something familiar in his eyes. He looked like someone who'd almost lost everything. She knew that look. She'd worn it herself. Okay, Emma heard herself say. 10 a.m. Adrian smiled. It transformed his whole face, made him look younger, less tired. Good. Marcus will get your contact information and send you the address. He paused. Thank you, Emma. I mean that. You didn't have to speak up. Most people wouldn't have. Most people are smarter than me, Emma said. No. Adrian shook his head. Most people are just more afraid. He was right about that. Emma was terrified. But she was also, for the first time in years, something else. Curious. Emma left the Celestine Club at midnight, still wearing her server's uniform, still carrying tips that wouldn't cover her electric bill. The rain had stopped, but the streets were slick with it, reflecting the city lights in long streaks of gold and red. She walked to the T station on autopilot, her mind replaying the last hour on an endless loop. What the hell did you just do? Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. This is Marcus Chen, Adrian's attorney. Confirming tomorrow 10 a.m. at Cross Industries headquarters, 1800 Atlantic Avenue. Security will have your name. Dress business casual. And Emma, bring copies of any credentials you have related to language skills, even if you think they're not good enough. Emma stared at the message. Business casual. She owned exactly one outfit that might qualify. A gray skirt and white blouse she'd bought at Goodwill for her mother's funeral 6 years ago. Credentials. She had certificates from online courses she'd paid for with credit cards she still hadn't paid off. She had a high school diploma from a school that no longer existed. She had nothing that would impress anyone. She texted back, I'll be there. Then she got on the train and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. The apartment was dark when she got home. Emma lived in a fifth-floor walk-up in Dorchester, in a building that smelled like old cooking oil and broken promises. Studio apartment, 400 square feet, bathroom so small you had to close the door to use the sink. But it was hers. She'd signed the lease herself. Nobody could take it away. She dropped her bag, kicked off her shoes, and sat on the edge of her bed in the dark. Tomorrow she would walk into a billionaire's office building and pretend she belonged there. Tomorrow she would sit in a meeting with lawyers and executives and try to explain how she'd learned 7 languages from library books and YouTube videos and sheer stubborn refusal to let her circumstances define her limits. Tomorrow she would probably embarrass herself and confirm what everyone already knew, that people like Emma Vale didn't get fairy tale endings. They got by. They survived. They didn't get to be heroes. Her phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from a different number. This is Adrian. Marcus gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to say again, thank you. Not just for tonight, for giving a damn. That matters more than you know. See you tomorrow. Emma read the message 3 times. Then she set her phone down and did something she hadn't done in years. She let herself hope. Sleep didn't come easily. Emma lay in the dark, watching the headlights from Atlantic Avenue paint patterns on her ceiling, thinking about all the ways tomorrow could destroy her. She thought about the foster homes. 15 of them before she aged out at 18. 15 different families who'd looked at her and seen either a paycheck or a problem, never a person. She'd learned languages because they were free. Libraries didn't care if you had a permanent address or a family that wanted you. Books didn't judge. She thought about the Duchamps, the French couple who'd kept her for 2 years, longer than anyone else. They'd been old, too old to really take care of a teenage girl with trust issues and anger problems, but they'd tried. They'd taught her French and cooking and how to set a table properly. They died within 6 months of each other when Emma was 17, and she'd been moved to another home before their funerals. She thought about all the jobs she'd worked: retail, food service, cleaning offices at night, always invisible, always replaceable, always knowing that one mistake, one sick day, one moment of being too visible would mean losing everything. And she thought about Adrian Cross. He'd looked at her like she was real, not a waitress, not a foster kid, not a charity case or a problem to solve. Just real. That scared her more than anything. Short. Morning came too fast. Emma was up at 6, showering in the cramped bathroom, trying to make her hair look professional instead of just clean. The gray skirt still fit. The blouse was wrinkled, but a hot iron, borrowed from her neighbor Mrs. Chen, fixed that mostly. She looked at herself in the mirror, 30 years old, no family, no degree, no real career, just a collection of survival skills and languages that had never gotten her anywhere until last night. You can still back out. Call Marcus. Say you're sick. Go back to the Celestine and pretend none of this happened. But even as she thought it, Emma knew she wouldn't. She'd spent her whole life being invisible by choice, by necessity, by fear. And last night, for 3 minutes, she'd been visible. She'd been seen, and somehow, impossibly, she'd mattered. She wasn't ready to give that up yet. The T was crowded with morning commuters. Emma stood pressed against the door, watching Boston slide past through the scratched windows. Dorchester to South Station to Atlantic Avenue. The Cross Industries building was impossible to miss, 40 stories of steel and glass, the kind of building that looked like it cost more per floor than Emma would make in a lifetime. Security stopped her at the lobby. "I have a meeting with Mr. Cross," Emma said, hating how uncertain her voice sounded. "Emma Vale, I should be on the list." The guard checked his computer, looked up at her, looked back at the computer. "10th floor," he said finally, handing her a visitor badge. "Elevators are straight back." The badge felt heavy in her hand. Emma Vale? Guessed. She made it to the elevator, pressed 10, watched the numbers climb. Her reflection in the polished doors looked terrified. Business casual. Credentials. Meeting at 10. The doors opened. Marcus was waiting in the lobby, still wearing wire-rimmed glasses, still looking like he trusted nothing. But when he saw Emma, his expression shifted to something almost like relief. "You came," he said. "Was there a bet I wouldn't?" A small smile. "Adrian's office betting pool had you at 60-40 in favor of ghosting. I took the minority position." "Good bet. We'll see." Marcus gestured down a hallway lined with glass-walled conference rooms. "Adrian's running a few minutes late, emergency with his daughter's school. But the legal team is already here. They want to talk to you about last night." Emma's stomach flipped. "The legal team? Don't worry, they're just curious, and maybe a little embarrassed that you caught what they missed." Marcus paused outside a conference room door. "Emma, before we go in, what you did last night took guts. But today's going to be different. These people are going to test you, ask you questions designed to find holes in your knowledge. It's not personal. It's just how they work." "Okay. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable or out of your depth, you can leave. No one's going to judge you." Emma almost laughed. Everyone would judge her. That's what people did. But she nodded anyway. Marcus opened the door. 5 people sat around a conference table. 3 men, 2 women, all expensively dressed, all looking at Emma like she was an equation they needed to solve. "Everyone," Marcus said, "this is Emma Vale. Emma, this is the team. Richard handles international contracts, Susan does corporate acquisitions, James covers intellectual property, and Lisa and Tom are our primary litigators." Emma's hand moved in an awkward wave. "Hi." "Sit," Susan said, gesturing to an empty chair. She was maybe 50, with sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes. "We've been reviewing the Laurent contract. Marcus sent us the recording from last night." Emma sat. "It's impressive," Richard said. He had a British accent, the kind that came from Cambridge or Oxford. The translator's strategy was actually quite sophisticated, changing verb tenses, replacing active voice with passive, substituting qualifying language. Most people wouldn't catch it even if they were fluent. But you did, Lisa said. She was younger, maybe 35, with the kind of aggressive intensity Emma associated with people who build by the minute. Walk us through how. Emma took a breath. I was listening to both versions simultaneously. The translator would read a sentence in French, then provide what he claimed was the English equivalent. But the sentence structures didn't match. In French, when you want to indicate a transfer of control, you use specific phrasing. Le contrôle opérationnel est transféré. That's unambiguous. It means control is being transferred, period. But he was translating it as advisory language, suggestions instead of mandates. And you picked up on that in real time, Tom said. The first couple times I thought maybe I was misunderstanding, but by Article 12 it was clear he was lying systematically. Susan leaned forward. You said you speak 7 languages. How did you learn them? Here it was, the question Emma had been dreading. Self-taught mostly, books, online courses. I had some instruction in French when I was younger. She didn't mention the foster home, didn't want to bring that into the room, but the others I just picked up. Just picked up, James repeated. He sounded skeptical. I worked retail for a while in a neighborhood with a lot of Portuguese speakers. I was a nanny for a family from Madrid. I cleaned offices in Chinatown. Emma met his eyes. You learn fast when you need the job. But no formal credentials, Richard said. No. No university degree. No. The room went quiet. Emma felt the familiar shame start to creep in. She wasn't supposed to be here. These people had gone to Harvard and Yale and Stanford. They had law degrees and partnerships and expense accounts. She had a GED and a studio apartment and student debt from an online language program she'd never finished. That's actually perfect, Susan said. Emma blinked. What? Laurent targeted Adrian specifically because he's young, aggressive, American. Laurent assumed Adrian would rely on credentialed experts, people like us, who could be fooled by sophisticated legal language. He didn't account for someone who learned languages the hard way, who learned to spot lies because lies were expensive. Susan's right, Marcus said from the doorway. He'd been standing there listening. You caught this because you weren't looking at it like a lawyer. You were looking at it like someone who can't afford to be wrong. Which brings us to the question, Lisa said. What do you want out of this, Emma? Emma stared at her. I don't understand. Adrian offered you a job, but we don't know what kind of job yet. So tell us, what do you want to do? It was such a simple question. What do you want? Nobody had asked Emma that in years. She'd wanted to survive. She'd wanted to pay rent. She'd wanted to not end up on the street like so many other foster kids she'd known. But what did she actually want? I want to be useful, Emma said slowly. I want to do work that matters. I want... She stopped. This was going to sound stupid. I want to learn things that people think I'm not smart enough to learn. Susan smiled. It was the first warm expression Emma had seen from any of them. Okay, she said. Let's see if we can make that happen. Magic. Adrian arrived 20 minutes later, slightly out of breath, tie loosened. Sorry. Maya's school called. She punched a kid who said her drawing was ugly. He said it with a mixture of exasperation and pride. She's 6. Where does she learn this? Marcus coughed. Adrian, you literally punched a board member last year. He had it coming. Adrian saw Emma and his expression shifted. Emma, you're here. I'm here. Good. Great. What did I miss? Susan stood. We've been testing Emma's language skills and discussing how she might fit into the team. She's legit, Adrian. More than legit. If we could figure out a role... I have a role, Adrian said. He pulled out a chair, sat down. I've been thinking about this since last night. Laurent isn't the only one running these plays. There are dozens of companies, maybe hundreds, that use language barriers and translation tricks to screw over American businesses trying to expand internationally. We've all seen it. Nods around the table. So here's what I'm thinking. Emma becomes our specialist. International contract review, translation verification, due diligence on any deal involving non-English documentation. She works directly with this team, learns the legal framework, and provides the linguistic expertise we're clearly missing. Richard raised an eyebrow. You want to hire someone with no legal training as a contract specialist? I want to hire someone who just saved me from financial suicide because she paid attention when everyone else in the room was asleep. Adrian looked at Emma. If you're interested. Emma's mouth had gone dry. A real job, not waiting tables, not cleaning offices, a job where she used her brain, where she learned things, where she mattered. I don't know anything about corporate law, she said. You'll learn. We'll teach you. I don't have a degree. I don't care. Do you want the job or not? It was such a direct question, such a simple question. Do you want this? Yes, Emma said. Yes, I want the job. Then you're hired. Adrian stood, extended his hand. Welcome to Cross Industries, Emma Vale. She shook his hand. His grip was warm, firm, certain. For the first time in her life, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Emma's first day started with paperwork that made her eyes cross. HR needed forms, tax documents, background checks, direct deposit information. The woman processing everything, her name tag said Jennifer, kept looking at Emma like she was a puzzle piece from the wrong box. And your previous employer was the Celestine Club? Yes. As a waitress? Yes. Jennifer typed something, frowned at her screen. And now you're listed as a language specialist reporting directly to Mr. Cross with a salary of… She stopped, looked at Emma. Is this correct? Emma had seen the number that morning in the offer letter Marcus had sent over. It was more than she'd made in the last 3 years combined. Apparently, Emma said. Jennifer made a non-committal sound and went back to typing. 2 hours later, Emma had a badge that said employee instead of guest, a desk on the 10th floor near the legal department, and a laptop that probably cost more than her car, if she'd had a car. Marcus appeared around 11 with coffee and a stack of files that hit the desk like a judge's gavel. These are all the international contracts we've signed in the last 18 months, he said. Adrian wants you to review them. Look for anything that feels off. Emma stared at the stack. All of them? Consider it orientation. Marcus set the coffee down next to the files. 2 cream, 1 sugar. That's how you took it at the Celestine, right? He'd noticed. He'd actually paid attention to how the waitress took her coffee. Right, Emma said quietly. Thank you. Marcus nodded and left. Emma opened the first file. 3 hours later, her head was pounding, and she'd found 2 contracts with suspicious translation discrepancies. Nothing as blatant as Laurent's trap, but enough to make her highlight sections and add notes in the margins. She was so focused she didn't hear Adrian approach until he spoke. Finding anything interesting? Emma jumped, nearly spilling coffee on a document that probably represented someone's entire business. Adrian leaned against her desk, arms crossed, looking more relaxed than he had in the conference room. He'd lost the tie completely and rolled up his sleeves. There was a small smudge of what looked like marker on his left hand. Sorry, he said. Didn't mean to sneak up on you. It's fine. I was just… Emma gestured at the files. Marcus said you wanted these reviewed. I did, but I didn't expect you to actually start today. Most people take at least a week to get settled. I don't really know how to get settled, Adrian smiled. Fair enough. Find anything? Emma showed him the 2 contracts, explained the issues. One involved a Japanese manufacturing agreement where the timeline commitments didn't match between versions. Another was a German partnership where the profit-sharing language was deliberately vague in ways that favored the other party. Adrian listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. These deals are already signed, he said finally, already in motion. I know, I'm sorry, I should have started with the pending ones. No. This is good. This is exactly what I needed to see. Adrian pulled up a chair, sat down next to her desk like they were colleagues instead of billionaire and brand new employee who still wasn't entirely sure this wasn't an elaborate prank. The Japanese deal has been underperforming for 6 months. We couldn't figure out why. And the German partnership is already heading toward litigation because they keep claiming we're not meeting our obligations. The obligations that aren't actually spelled out in the English version, Emma said. Right. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. How did we miss this? Emma didn't answer. The question was rhetorical anyway. They'd missed it because nobody had been looking, because everyone had assumed that expensive lawyers and professional translators meant the contracts were safe. "Can I ask you something?" Adrian said. "Sure. Why didn't you ever pursue this professionally before? Translation work, I mean. You clearly have the skills." Emma had known this question was coming, had prepared an answer that was true enough without being pathetic. "I tried, but most firms want certified translators with degrees and references. I had online certificates and a GED. Nobody was interested." Their loss. Adrian said it like he meant it. "Well, you're here now, and I'm very interested in making sure you stay." There was something in the way he said it that made Emma's stomach flutter. Professional interest, obviously, but also something else. Recognition, maybe. Like he saw something in her that other people had missed. "I'm not going anywhere," Emma said. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression shifted to something between frustration and resignation. "I have to go. Maya's school again. Apparently punching one kid wasn't enough." "Is she okay?" "She's fine. The other kids are fine. Maya's just... She has opinions about fairness, and she expresses them physically." He stood. "We're working on it." Emma thought about what it must be like, raising a 6-year-old alone while running a company. Thought about the marker on his hand that was probably from drawing with his daughter that morning. "For what it's worth," Emma said, "I think it's good that she stands up for herself." Adrian paused at the door. "Yeah? Yeah, better to learn that young." He looked at her for a moment longer than necessary, then nodded. "Keep reviewing those files. I want a full report by end of week." He left. Emma sat in her new desk chair in her new office and tried to remember how to breathe normally. The afternoon passed in a blur of contract language and coffee that had gone cold. Emma's eyes were starting to blur the words together when Susan appeared with another stack of files. "These just came in from a potential acquisition in Seoul," Susan said. "Adrian wants your eyes on them before we proceed with due diligence." Emma looked at the stack. "I don't speak Korean." "The documents are in English, but they reference Korean corporate law and the original company documentation. I need you to verify that the English summaries match what the Korean law actually says." "I don't know Korean corporate law." Susan smiled. "Then I guess you're about to learn. There's a legal database login in your welcome email. Start there." She left before Emma could protest. Emma opened the database, started reading about Korean corporate governance structures. By 6 p.m., she had a working understanding of chaebol regulations and was cross-referencing the acquisition documents against publicly available Korean financial filings. By 8 p.m., she'd found 3 inconsistencies. By 9 p.m., she'd drafted an email to Susan outlining the problems. She hit send and leaned back in her chair, suddenly aware that the office had gone quiet. She was alone on the entire floor. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Still at the office? Emma frowned, then realized. Adrian must have gotten her number from HR. She texted back, "Just finished the Seoul files." The response came immediately. "It's 9 p.m. Is there a curfew I don't know about? There's a thing called work-life balance. I'll learn about it eventually." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Maya wants to know if you like pizza." Emma stared at the message, blinked. "What?" "Long story. But we're ordering dinner, and she insists I ask the woman who saved Daddy's company if she wants pizza." Her words, not mine. Emma's heart did something complicated in her chest. "I should probably go home. You should probably eat. When's the last time you had food?" Emma thought about it. "Coffee at 11. Nothing since. Breakfast. That's what I thought. We're in my office, 40th floor. Come up." No pressure, but Maya's very persuasive, and I'm a weak father. Emma shouldn't go, should establish boundaries, keep things professional. She got in the elevator and pressed 40. The top floor was different. No cubicles, no conference rooms, just a massive corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor and a sitting area where a small girl with dark curls and paint-stained hands was arranging stuffed animals on a leather couch. "You came!" The girl, Maya, jumped up. "Daddy said you were smart and spoke a million languages. How many is a million?" "Not quite a million," Emma said. "More like 7. "That's still a lot. I only speak 1, and sometimes I'm not even good at that." Maya grinned. I'm Maya. Daddy says you saved our company from bad people. Maya, Adrian said from behind his desk. We talked about this. Emma's a colleague, not a superhero. She sounds like a superhero to me. Maya turned back to Emma. Do you like pepperoni or just cheese? Pepperoni's good. See, Daddy? Pepperoni. Everyone likes pepperoni except you. Adrian held up his hands in surrender. I'm outnumbered. Pepperoni it is. He ordered the pizza while Maya showed Emma her drawings. Elaborate crayon scenarios involving unicorns and what appeared to be a space station. Emma sat on the couch and listened to Maya's detailed explanations of unicorn politics and why the purple one was the leader even though the pink one was bigger. Because being a leader isn't about being biggest, Maya said seriously. It's about being smartest and bravest. Emma glanced at Adrian, who was watching them with an expression that was hard to read. That's a good philosophy, Emma said. Daddy taught me. He says size doesn't matter if you're not afraid. Maya paused. Were you afraid when you told those bad people they were lying? Maya, Adrian said gently. It's okay, Emma said. She looked at Maya. Yes, I was very afraid. But you did it anyway? Yes. Maya nodded like this confirmed something important. That's what bravery is. Daddy says bravery is being scared, but doing the thing anyway because it's right. Your daddy's correct. The pizza arrived. They ate it sitting on the couch with Maya between them, grease staining the napkins and Maya's face, the city lights spreading out below them like scattered diamonds. So, Adrian said, reaching for another slice, you found problems with the Seoul acquisition. I sent Susan an email. I saw. She forwarded it to me. He studied her. How did you learn Korean corporate law in one afternoon? I didn't learn it. I just learned enough to spot the inconsistencies. That's a skill. That's survival instinct, Emma said without thinking. Maya looked up at her. What does that mean? Emma hesitated, but something about this little girl's direct gaze made lying feel impossible. It means when you grow up not having very much, you learn to figure things out fast, Emma said. You learn to read situations and see problems before they become dangerous. Were things dangerous when you grew up? Maya, Adrian said, his voice carrying a warning. But Emma shook her head. Sometimes, but I'm okay now. Maya seemed satisfied with this. She went back to her pizza, swinging her legs off the side of the couch. Adrian looked at Emma over his daughter's head. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Recognition of shared damage. I grew up with everything, Adrian said quietly. Money, education, opportunities. And I almost lost everything because I didn't see a trap that was right in front of me. You grew up with nothing and saved me because you knew what traps looked like. Different kinds of education, Emma said. Yeah. Adrian smiled. Yeah, exactly. Maya finished her pizza and announced she was going to draw more unicorns. She settled on the floor with a fresh piece of paper, leaving Emma and Adrian alone on the couch. Thank you for coming up, Adrian said. You didn't have to. I was hungry. You were being nice. There's a difference. He set his plate down. Can I tell you something? Emma nodded. I'm not good at this. The personal stuff. After Maya's mom left, I kind of shut down that part of myself. Focused on work, focused on Maya, kept everything else at a distance. He paused. But you showed up in my life 2 days ago, and already I feel like I can talk to you in a way I haven't talked to anyone in years. That's either a sign I should get a therapist or that you're someone worth knowing. Emma's throat felt tight. Probably both. Adrian laughed. Probably. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Maya draw. Emma tried to remember the last time she'd felt this settled, this present, in a moment. Couldn't. Can I ask you something? Emma said. Always. Why did you really hire me? And don't say it's just about the languages. Adrian considered the question. You want the honest answer? Please? Because when you spoke up in that room, you had everything to lose and nothing to gain. You could have stayed quiet, kept your job, stayed safe. But you saw something wrong and you couldn't stay silent even though it terrified you. He looked at her. That's the kind of person I want in my company, the kind of person I want in my life. Emma's heart was doing that complicated thing again. I'm not that brave, she said. You are that brave. You just don't see it yet. Adrian shifted closer. Not inappropriately close, but close enough that Emma could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to actually hear it, okay? Okay. You matter. Not because of what you did for me. Not because of what you can do for the company. You matter because you're smart and honest and you see things other people miss. And I know the world has probably spent your whole life telling you otherwise, but the world is wrong. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Do what? Be the person you think I am. You already are that person. You just need to believe it. Adrian reached over, squeezed her hand once. Brief, warm, gone. And I'll keep reminding you until you do. Maya looked up from her drawing. Daddy, are you being mushy again? I'm being honest, sweetness. That's what you always say when you're being mushy. Maya rolled her eyes with the dramatic flair of a 6-year-old. Emma, do you have a boyfriend? Maya! Adrian's face went red. Emma laughed despite herself. No boyfriend. Good, because Daddy needs someone who's nice and smart and not boring. Maya returned to her drawing. All his dates are boring. I don't have dates, Adrian said weakly. You had that one lady who talked about her yoga a lot. That was one coffee meeting 3 years ago. Still boring. Maya held up her finished drawing, a purple unicorn standing in front of what looked like a building. This is you, Emma. You're the purple unicorn leader who saved the company. Emma took the drawing, feeling something crack open in her chest. Thank you, she managed. I'll keep this forever. You better, Maya said seriously. It's very important art. It was nearly 11 when Emma finally left. Adrian walked her to the elevator, Maya asleep on his shoulder, her small face peaceful. Thank you again for coming up, Adrian said quietly, careful not to wake his daughter. She liked you. That's rare. She's incredible. She's a handful, but yeah, he smiled down at Maya. She's everything. The elevator arrived with a soft ding. Emma, Adrian said as she stepped inside, what you said about survival instinct, I get that. More than you might think. We should talk about it sometime, properly. I'd like that. The doors started to close. And Emma, tomorrow there's a meeting with the Seoul acquisition team. I want you there. The doors closed before she could respond. Emma rode down 40 floors clutching a crayon drawing of a purple unicorn and trying to understand what had just happened to her carefully constructed walls. The next morning started with panic. Emma stood in front of her tiny closet at 6 a.m. and realized she owned exactly 2 outfits that could pass for professional. The gray skirt and white blouse she'd worn yesterday, and a black pair of pants with a navy sweater that had a small hole near the hem. She chose the pants and hoped nobody noticed the hole. The Seoul meeting was at 9. Emma arrived at 8:30 and found Marcus already in the conference room, setting up presentations on a massive screen. Big day, he said without looking up. You ready? Not remotely. Good. Confidence is overrated. Marcus finally looked at her, took in the visible nervousness. Seriously, Emma, you know this material. Susan said your analysis of the acquisition documents was the most thorough review she's seen in years. She said that? She did, and Susan doesn't give compliments unless they're earned. The door opened. Susan entered with Richard and James, followed by 3 people Emma didn't recognize, 2 men and a woman, all expensively dressed, all carrying the kind of sleek briefcases that probably cost more than Emma's rent. This is the team from Hanseong Industries, Susan said. Mr. Park, Miss Kim, and their legal counsel, Mr. Cho. They've flown in from Seoul to discuss the acquisition details. Emma shook hands, tried not to think about the hole in her sweater. Adrian arrived exactly at 9, still in motion, phone in hand. Sorry. Maya's nanny called in sick and I had to drop her at my sister's. He sat at the head of the table, all business now. Let's get started. The presentation began. Hanseong was a mid-sized manufacturing company looking to expand into American markets. The acquisition would give Cross Industries a foothold in Korean production while providing Hanseong with distribution networks and capital. On paper, it looked perfect. Emma listened to the pitch and watched the Hanseong team carefully. Mr. Park did most of the talking, his English excellent but formal. Ms. Kim took notes and occasionally whispered to Mr. Cho, who nodded and made his own notes. Something felt off. Emma couldn't name it at first. The numbers were solid, the projections were reasonable, the terms seemed fair. But there was something in the way Mr. Cho kept checking his notes, the way Ms. Kim's eyes flickered to Adrian whenever certain financial terms were mentioned. "If I may," Emma said quietly. Everyone turned. Her heart was pounding, but she pushed through. "I reviewed the documentation you submitted. There's a section regarding subsidiary liabilities that references Korean Commercial Code, Article 340. Mr. Park nodded. "Yes, standard corporate law regarding debt assumption." "Right. But the English summary suggests that Cross Industries would assume only disclosed debts. Article 340 actually extends liability to undisclosed debts if the acquiring party has expertise in the relevant business sector." Silence. Mr. Cho's expression didn't change, but his pen stopped moving. "That's an overly technical interpretation," Mr. Park said smoothly. In practice, it means if there are hidden liabilities, debts, or obligations Hansong hasn't disclosed, Cross Industries would be legally responsible for them under Korean law. Emma looked at Adrian. "That's not in the English version of the contract." Adrian leaned forward. "Mr. Park, is there something we should know about?" To his credit, Mr. Park didn't try to bluff. He exchanged looks with Miss Kim and Mr. Cho, then sighed. "There are some outstanding obligations," he admitted. "Pension liabilities from a factory closure 3 years ago. We believe they were resolved, but there's ongoing litigation. Under Article 340, yes, those debts could potentially transfer." "How much?" Susan's voice was sharp. "Approximately 40 million won." Richard pulled out his phone, did quick math. "That's about 30,000 US dollars. "It's still a material misrepresentation," James said. "You should have disclosed this." The meeting devolved into tense negotiation. Emma sat back and watched Adrian work, calm, direct, refusing to be rushed or intimidated. By the end, they'd restructured the deal with Hansong absorbing the pension liabilities before the acquisition and Cross Industries getting a better equity position to compensate for the risk. Mr. Park looked unhappy, but he agreed. After the Hanseong team left, Adrian turned to Emma. "How did you know to look at Article 340? "I didn't know. But when you sent me the files yesterday, I started reading about Korean corporate law. Article 340 kept coming up in acquisition cases. So when I saw it referenced in the contract without proper explanation, I flagged it." Susan was smiling. "You caught another one." "I caught another one," Emma repeated, feeling dazed. Adrian stood, walked over to her, put a hand on her shoulder. The touch was brief but warm, grounding. "Good work," he said simply. Seriously, good work. After everyone left, Emma sat alone in the conference room, staring at her notes. She'd been at Cross Industries for exactly 36 hours and had already prevented 2 major financial disasters. This wasn't luck. This was her skills, her instincts, her. Her phone buzzed. Text from Adrian. "Maya wants to know if you're free for dinner Saturday. We're making homemade pizza. Fair warning, she takes it very seriously." Emma smiled. "I'll be there." The week passed in a blur of contract reviews and language databases and late nights at the office. Emma learned the rhythms of Cross Industries, how Susan liked her coffee, how Richard always got cranky before major deadlines, how James made terrible jokes to break tension. And she learned about Adrian. He was in the office by 7 every morning and rarely left before 8. He took calls from Maya at lunch every single day, no matter what meeting he was in. He remembered everyone's names, from the security guards to the cleaning staff. And he had a tells when he was worried. He'd tap his pen twice against whatever surface was nearest, always twice, never once or 3 times. Thursday afternoon, Emma was deep in a Portuguese contract review when Adrian appeared at her desk. "Got a minute?" She looked up. He seemed nervous, which was unusual. "Sure, what's up?" "Walk with me." They took the elevator to the roof access, a privilege apparently reserved for executives. The city spread out around them, gray sky threatening rain. "I wanted to thank you," Adrian said. "Properly. Not just for the contracts, but for..." He gestured vaguely. "Everything. You've changed the way this company operates in less than a week. I'm just doing my job. You're doing a lot more than that. Adrian turned to face her fully. Emma, I know we don't know each other very well yet, but I feel like I should tell you something. Emma's heart rate picked up. When Maya's mom left, Adrian continued, she told me I was too intense, too focused on work, that I didn't know how to let people in. He laughed without humor. She wasn't wrong. After she left, I just closed off. Figured it was easier, safer for Maya and safer for me. Adrian, let me finish. He took a breath. The point is, I built walls, good walls, effective walls. And then you showed up and somehow you just walked right through them like they weren't even there. Emma didn't know what to say. I'm not trying to make this weird, Adrian said quickly. I'm your boss. You work for me. I understand professional boundaries. But I also think you should know that you matter to me. Not just as an employee, as a person. The rain started, light drops that quickly became heavier. They should go inside. Neither of them moved. You matter to me too, Emma said quietly. You and Maya both. I've never had... She stopped, started again. I've spent most of my life alone, and in 1 week you've made me feel like I belong somewhere. That's not nothing. Adrian stepped closer. No, that's definitely not nothing. They stood in the rain, city noise rising around them, and Emma thought about all the walls she'd built too, all the ways she'd protected herself by staying small and quiet and invisible. And she thought about how easily this man and his 6-year-old daughter had dismantled every single one. We should go inside, Adrian said, before we both catch pneumonia and Maya lectures us about proper rain gear. Emma laughed. She would, wouldn't she? She absolutely would. They went inside, soaked and smiling, and Emma realized something that should have terrified her, but somehow didn't. She was happy. For the first time in years, maybe ever, she was actually happy. Saturday arrived with cold sunshine and the smell of rising dough. Emma showed up at Adrian's townhouse in the South End carrying a bottle of wine she'd agonized over at the liquor store for 20 minutes, and wearing jeans that had cost her 3 months of careful saving. Maya answered the door, covered in flour. You came! Daddy said you might be too busy, but I knew you'd come because you promised. She grabbed Emma's hand. Come on, we're making the dough from scratch because store-bought is for quitters. Adrian appeared in the doorway to the kitchen, also covered in flour, looking more relaxed than Emma had ever seen him. She's very passionate about pizza, he said. I'm passionate about doing things right, Maya corrected. There's a difference. The afternoon dissolved into flour clouds and sauce debates, and Maya's firm conviction that pineapple was an acceptable topping despite her father's protests. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in years, comfortable in this warm kitchen with these people who'd somehow become important to her. Later, after Maya had eaten 3 slices and fallen asleep on the couch with a stuffed unicorn, Emma and Adrian sat at the kitchen island drinking wine. Thank you for this, Emma said. I didn't realize how much I needed it. A 6-year-old's pizza dictates? Normal. I needed normal. She smiled. Well, your version of normal anyway. Adrian studied her over his wine glass. Can I ask you something personal? Okay. You mentioned growing up with nothing. How bad was it? Emma considered lying, softening the truth. But something about the way Adrian was looking at her, open, genuinely interested, made her want to be honest. I was in foster care, she said, from age 5 to 18. 15 different homes. Some were okay. Most weren't. I learned fast that the best way to survive was to be useful and quiet and not ask for anything. Adrian didn't say anything, just listened. The languages helped, Emma continued. Libraries were free. YouTube was free. I could disappear into learning and forget about everything else. And eventually I got good enough that I thought maybe I could make something of it. But nobody wants a translator without credentials, so I waitressed instead. Until you saved my ass, Adrian said. Until I saved your ass, Emma agreed. Adrian set down his wine glass. I'm glad you did. Not just because of the company, because I got to meet you. Emma's face felt warm. Adrian? I know, too much too fast. I'm bad at this. He ran a hand through his hair. It's just been a long time since I felt like I could talk to someone. Really talk. And with you, it's easy. It is easy, Emma said. That's what scares me. Why does that scare you? Because easy things don't last. Not for people like me. Adrian reached across the island, took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused in ways she hadn't expected. Maybe this time is different, he said. Emma wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that she could have this. The job, the friendship, the connection she felt every time Adrian looked at her like she mattered. But 30 years of disappointment had taught her to protect herself. Maybe, she said, it was the best she could offer. And somehow, it seemed like enough. Monday morning brought the kind of cold that made Boston feel hostile. Emma stood at her desk reviewing a contract from a supplier in Milan when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You don't know me, but you cost me $40 million. We should talk. Her hands went cold. She showed the message to Marcus, who immediately went pale and called security. Within 10 minutes, Emma was in Adrian's office with 2 security personnel and Marcus hovering near the door. It's probably nothing, Marcus said, not sounding convinced. Could be a prank. Could be Laurent, Adrian said quietly. He'd gone very still, the way Emma had learned he did when he was calculating risks. Or someone connected to him. Emma's phone buzzed again. I'm in the lobby. 5 minutes of your time. That's all I'm asking. Don't respond, one of the security guards said. We'll handle this. But Emma was already typing. Who are you? The response came immediately. Someone who needs what you have. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to hire you. Adrian read over her shoulder, close enough that Emma could feel his warmth. This is insane. Let him up, Emma said. Everyone stared at her. Emma, we don't know who this person is or what they want, Marcus said carefully. This could be dangerous. Then have security right outside the door. Emma looked at Adrian. But I want to hear what he has to say. Adrian studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but security stays in the room. 10 minutes later, a man in his 50s walked into Adrian's office. Expensive suit, tired eyes, the posture of someone carrying weight they couldn't put down. He looked at Emma, and something like relief crossed his face. Ms. Vale, thank you for seeing me. He extended his hand. Michael Reeves, I'm the CFO of Thornton Medical Technologies. Emma didn't shake his hand. You said I cost you $40 million. You did. 3 weeks ago, my CEO was about to sign a manufacturing agreement with a Chinese firm. Would have been the biggest deal in our company's history. And then someone forwarded him an article about what happened with Adrian Cross and Laurent Holdings. Reeves smiled without humor. My CEO got paranoid. Hired an independent translator to review our Chinese contracts. Found out we were about to get screwed exactly the way Cross almost did. Adrian leaned against his desk, arms crossed. So you're here because Emma Vale is apparently the only person in Boston who can spot these traps. And I need her to review every international contract Thornton has signed in the last 5 years. Reeves looked at Emma. I'll pay whatever Cross is paying you plus 50%. And I'll hire you as a full-time consultant, not an employee. You'd have complete autonomy. The room went quiet. Emma felt Adrian's eyes on her, but didn't look at him. Mr. Reeves, she said slowly, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested. Reeves blinked. You haven't heard my full proposal. I don't need to. I have a job. I'm happy here. I'm offering you nearly double your current salary, and I'm still not interested. Emma's voice was firm now. If Thornton needs contract review, there are dozens of qualified firms in Boston. I'm sure Marcus can recommend several. Reeves looked between Emma and Adrian, clearly trying to understand what he was missing. Is this a negotiation tactic? Because I can go higher. It's not a tactic, Adrian said quietly. Emma said no. That's your answer. Reeves stood there for another moment, then sighed. Okay, I respect that. He pulled out a business card, set it on Adrian's desk. But if you change your mind, the offer stands. We need people like you, Ms. Vale. People who actually give a damn. He left. Security followed him out, leaving Emma alone with Adrian and Marcus. That was interesting, Marcus said finally. That was stupid, Emma said. She felt shaky, adrenaline fading. I should have at least heard his full offer. Why? Adrian was watching her carefully. Did you want to hear it? No, but I probably should have been smart about it. Gathered information, used it as leverage. Is that what you wanted to do? Emma met his eyes. No. Then you did exactly the right thing. Adrian pushed off from the desk. Marcus, can you give us a minute? Marcus left without argument. Adrian walked to the windows overlooking the harbor. Emma stayed where she was, trying to sort through the mess of emotions Reeves's visit had stirred up. You could have taken that job, Adrian said without turning around. Probably should have. It was a good offer. I know. So why didn't you? Emma thought about all the easy answers. Professional loyalty, commitment to cross industries, not wanting to job hop so quickly. All true. None of them the real reason. Because for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be, she said quietly. And I'm not ready to give that up for money. Adrian turned. His expression was complicated, pleased and worried and something else Emma couldn't name. Emma, I know it's stupid, she continued. I know I should be practical, build my career, take opportunities when they come, but I don't want to leave. It's not stupid. Adrian crossed the distance between them, stopped close enough that Emma had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. But I need you to understand something. That offer from Reeves? That's not going to be the last one. Word's getting out about what you can do. Companies are going to come looking for you. Let them. And eventually someone's going to make an offer you can't refuse. You don't know that. I do know that. Adrian's voice was gentle. Because you're that good, Emma. You're that valuable. And sooner or later, you're going to realize it too. Emma felt something crack in her chest. Are you trying to get rid of me? No. I'm trying to be honest with you. He reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so casual, so intimate, that Emma forgot how to breathe. I don't want you to leave, but I also don't want you to stay just because you're afraid of change. You deserve better than that. What if I'm staying because I want to? Then I'll do everything in my power to make sure you never regret it. They stood there in the morning light, close enough to touch, and Emma wondered when exactly her job had become so tangled up with her heart. The phone on Adrian's desk rang, shattering the moment. He answered it, listened, frowned. Put her through. Then to Emma. Maya's school, again. Emma stepped back, giving him space, but Adrian gestured for her to stay. Mrs. Patterson, what happened this time? He listened, and Emma watched his expression shift from concerned to resigned. No, I understand. Yes, I'll come get her. He hung up. Maya punched another kid. Oh, no. Oh, yes, apparently he said girls can't be astronauts. Adrian grabbed his jacket. I have to go. Can you? I'll handle the board meeting at 2, Emma said. Richard can present the quarterly review. You sure? Go be a dad. I've got this. Adrian paused at the door. Thank you for staying, for all of it. Stop thanking me for doing my job. I'm not thanking you for doing your job. He smiled. I'm thanking you for giving a damn. He left, and Emma stood in his empty office, wondering how she'd gotten here. 2 weeks ago, she'd been a waitress. Now she was turning down lucrative job offers and covering board meetings, and getting thanked by billionaires for giving a damn. Her phone buzzed. Text from Susan. Board meeting moved to 3. Richard's freaking out. Can you talk him down? Emma headed to Richard's office and found him surrounded by spreadsheets, looking like he was about to hyperventilate. The numbers don't make sense, he said without preamble. Q3 earnings are down 12%, but our actual revenue is up. Something's wrong with the international reporting. Emma looked at the spreadsheets. Saw the problem immediately. Currency conversion, she said. These figures are using last quarter's exchange rates. Euros dropped significantly since then. If you adjust for current rates, she pulled up a calculator, started running numbers. Richard watched over her shoulder, gradually relaxing as the discrepancies resolved into logical patterns. How did you spot that so fast? He asked. Because I grew up converting dollars to food stamps and food stamps to meals. You learn to pay attention to exchange rates when they determine whether you eat. Richard looked at her for a long moment. I went to Oxford, top of my class, and I missed something you caught in 30 seconds. Different kinds of education, Emma said, echoing what Adrian had told her. Yeah, Richard smiled. Adrian was right about you. What did he say? That you see things the rest of us miss because you're looking at different questions. We're asking, is this correct? You're asking, where's the trap? Emma thought about that. It was true. She'd spent her whole life looking for traps because traps were everywhere when you had nothing. The board meeting went smoothly. Richard presented the corrected figures, and the board members nodded in approval. Emma sat in the back and took notes, invisible again by choice this time. After the meeting, Susan found her. "You fixed Richard's numbers. I just pointed out the exchange rate issue. You saved us from looking incompetent in front of the board." Susan gestured to her office. "Walk with me." Susan's office was neat, organized, intimidating, awards on the walls, diplomas from Stanford Law, photos of her shaking hands with people Emma vaguely recognized from news coverage. "I wanted to talk to you about something," Susan said, closing the door. "You've been here 2 weeks. In that time, you've prevented 3 major contract disasters, caught 2 accounting errors, and turned down a job offer that would have doubled your salary. That's an impressive track record." "Thank you." "It's also concerning." Emma frowned. "I don't understand." Susan sat on the edge of her desk. "Emma, you're good at what you do, exceptionally good, but you're also operating without any real protection or understanding of how corporate politics work. That makes you vulnerable." "Vulnerable to what?" "To being used, to being blamed when things go wrong, to becoming a liability instead of an asset." Susan's voice was kind but firm. "Right now, you're Adrian's golden girl, the waitress who saved the company. That's a great story. But stories have shelf lives, and when yours expires, you need to make sure you have actual credentials backing you up." Emma's stomach tightened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you should go back to school. Get a degree in international business or law or both. Build a foundation that can't be questioned." Susan pulled out a folder. "I took the liberty of researching programs. There's an executive MBA program at BU that's designed for working professionals. You could start in January." Emma stared at the folder. "I can't afford an MBA from Boston University." "Cross Industries has an education fund. Adrian would approve your application in a heartbeat." "I don't want to owe him that." "It's not a debt. It's an investment." Susan pushed the folder across the desk. "Look, I know what it's like to be underestimated. I was the only woman in my law school class who came from a public school instead of private. Everyone assumed I'd drop out or settle for a mid-tier firm. I had to work twice as hard to prove I belonged." "But you had a degree," Emma said quietly. "You had credentials. I have nothing." "You have skills. You have intelligence. You have courage." Susan's voice softened. "But in this world, those things aren't always enough. Sometimes you need the paperwork to back up what you already know you can do." Emma took the folder. "I'll think about it." "Good. And Emma, don't wait too long. The people who want you to fail are already looking for ammunition." Emma left Susan's office feeling unsettled. She'd been so focused on proving herself day by day that she hadn't thought about the long game, about what happened when the novelty wore off and she was just another employee without the credentials to justify her position. Her phone buzzed. "Adrian, Maya's suspended for 3 days. Any chance you're free for emergency babysitting duty? I'll pay you whatever your hourly rate is plus hazard pay." Emma smiled despite her anxiety. "I don't have an hourly rate, and you don't need to pay me. What time?" "Now? I'm completely screwed. Emergency investor meeting in an hour, and my sister can't take her. Send me your address." "I'm on my way." 20 minutes later, Emma was standing in Adrian's townhouse watching Maya play with dolls that were apparently staging an elaborate corporate takeover. "And then the Purple Unicorn CEO fires everyone who was mean to her," Maya announced. "Because she has the power now." "That's one way to handle conflict," Emma said. Maya looked up. "How would you handle it?" "Probably try to figure out why people were being mean first. Maybe they're scared or hurt or don't understand something." "That sounds like more work than just firing them." "It usually is." Maya considered this. "Is that why you didn't punch those bad people who tried to steal Daddy's company? Because you wanted to understand them first?" Emma blinked. "Sort of. I wanted to figure out what they were really doing before I stopped them." "But you did stop them." "Yes." "Because they were wrong." "Yes." Maya nodded firmly. "Okay, that makes sense." She returned to her dolls. "The Purple Unicorn CEO will try understanding first, but if they're still mean, she's going to fire them." Emma laughed. "Fair compromise." They spent the afternoon baking cookies and watching Maya's favorite movie about a girl who builds a robot. Emma found herself relaxing in a way she rarely did, comfortable in the domestic rhythm of it all. Around 5, Maya fell asleep on the couch, cookie crumbs on her shirt. Emma was cleaning up the kitchen when Adrian got home. He looked exhausted, tie loosened, jacket over one arm. But when he saw Maya asleep and Emma washing dishes, something in his expression softened. "You didn't have to clean," he said quietly. "Maya and I made a mess. Seemed fair to fix it." Adrian set down his briefcase, walked over to where Emma stood at the sink. He picked up a dish towel and started drying. They worked in silence for a few minutes, the domesticity of it almost overwhelming in its normalcy. "Susan talked to me today," Emma said finally, "about going back to school. She mentioned she might. You knew?" "She ran it by me first, wanted to make sure I'd support it." Adrian set down a dried plate. "What did you tell her?" "That I'd think about it." "And? What are you thinking?" Emma turned off the water, dried her hands. "I'm thinking she's probably right, that I need credentials to back up what I can do, but I'm also thinking that feels like admitting I'm not good enough as I am. That's not what it means, isn't it? If I was really that valuable, I wouldn't need a degree." Adrian set down the towel, turned Emma to face him. "You are that valuable. The degree isn't about proving your worth. It's about protecting yourself in a world that values paperwork over talent. I hate that that's true, but it is. Susan said people are looking for ammunition against me. Susan's not wrong. You came out of nowhere. You're making waves. Some people will resent that." His hands were still on her shoulders, warm and steady. "But that's not a reason to hide. It's a reason to armor up. By getting an MBA, by getting whatever tools you need to stay in the fight." Adrian's thumb brushed against her collarbone, probably unconscious. "I don't want you to go back to school because you think you're not good enough. I want you to go because it'll give you options, power, independence." "What if I don't want independence from you?" The words were out before Emma could stop them. Adrian went very still. "Emma, I know, inappropriate. You're my boss. I shouldn't have said that." "I'm glad you did." His voice was low, careful. "Because I need to tell you something too." Emma's heart was racing. "The last 2 weeks have been the best I've had in years," Adrian said. "And it's not just because you've saved my company multiple times. It's because I actually look forward to coming to work now. Because I know you'll be there and we'll talk and you'll see things I miss and you'll make me laugh and I'll go home to Maya and tell her about the smart thing Emma said today." "Adrian, let me finish." He took a breath. "I'm falling for you. Maybe already fell. And I know that's complicated and possibly a disaster and definitely something we need to be careful about. But I also can't keep pretending it's not happening." Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the warmth of his hands and the intensity of his gaze and the terrifying, wonderful truth of what he'd just said. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Of what? Of this being another thing I lose, another place I don't get to keep." Her eyes were burning. "I'm so tired of losing things, Adrian." He pulled her closer, wrapped his arms around her. Emma let herself lean into him, feeling safer than she had in years. "You're not going to lose this," he said into her hair. "I promise you that." "You can't promise that. Watch me." Shh. They stood there in his kitchen, holding each other while his daughter slept in the next room, and Emma let herself hope that maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time she'd found something she could keep. The following week brought new complications. Emma enrolled in the BU Executive MBA program, starting in January. The paperwork was daunting, but Susan helped her through it, patient and thorough. "You're going to be great at this," Susan said, reviewing Emma's application essay. "You write clearly, think critically, and you actually have real-world experience to draw from. I just hope I can keep up." "You'll keep up fine, trust me." But the MBA announcement created ripples Emma hadn't anticipated. Suddenly, other employees were asking questions. How had Emma gotten approved for the education fund so quickly? What made her so special? Why was Adrian investing so much in someone with no credentials? Marcus heard the gossip and warned Emma. "People are talking," he said over coffee, "saying you're getting preferential treatment, that there's something going on between you and Adrian." Emma's face went hot. "There's nothing." "I know. And even if there was, it wouldn't be anyone's business." Marcus leaned forward. "But perception matters, and right now the perception is that you're Adrian's favorite and that's the only reason you're here. That's not fair. No, it's not, but it's reality. Marcus studied her. You need to be really careful, Emma. Prove yourself based on merit, not on your relationship with Adrian. Keep things professional. Document everything. Don't give people ammunition. Emma nodded, feeling the weight of it settle on her shoulders. That evening, she stayed late at the office reviewing contracts. Around 8, Adrian appeared at her desk. You're still here. So are you. I have an excuse. I'm emotionally stunted and use work to avoid dealing with my feelings. He smiled. What's yours? Trying to prove I deserve to be here. Adrian's smile faded. Emma, people are talking, Adrian, saying I'm only here because of you, that I'm getting special treatment. You are getting special treatment because you're exceptional at what you do. That's not what they think. Adrian sat on the edge of her desk. Do you want to know what I think? Always. I think you're letting other people's opinions matter more than your own accomplishments. I think you're so used to being told you don't belong that you're halfway believing it, even though you've proven otherwise a dozen times. He reached for her hand. I think you're scared that this is all going to disappear, so you're preparing yourself for the inevitable disappointment. Emma's throat felt tight. Am I wrong? Completely wrong, because you're not here because I like you, though I do. You're here because you're brilliant and observant and brave. And if anyone suggests otherwise, I'll personally escort them to HR. You can't protect me from office politics. Watch me try. Emma laughed despite herself. You're ridiculous. I'm determined. There's a difference. Adrian squeezed her hand. Go home, Emma. Get some sleep. Come back tomorrow and keep being exactly who you are. And if who I am isn't enough, then everyone else is wrong about what enough means. Emma went home that night and lay awake thinking about belonging and worth and all the ways she'd learned to make herself small to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. But Cross Industries was different. Adrian was different. And maybe, just maybe, she was allowed to be different too. The next morning brought a crisis that pushed all other concerns aside. Laurent Holdings had filed a lawsuit against Cross Industries claiming defamation and tortious interference with contract. They alleged that Adrian had intentionally sabotaged their business relationships by spreading false rumors about their translation practices. It's bullshit, Marcus said, pacing Adrian's office. Complete bullshit. We have recordings. We have independent verification. We also have very deep pockets, and Laurent knows it, Adrian said grimly. This isn't about winning. It's about making the cost of fighting higher than the cost of settling. So we settle? Emma asked from her chair in the corner. Over my dead body. Adrian turned to her. They went after you too. Named you specifically as a co-defendant, claiming you conspired to damage their reputation. Emma felt cold. They're suing me? They're suing both of us, and asking for $40 million in damages. The number hung in the air. Emma's entire net worth was maybe $15,000. $40 million might as well be $40 billion. I can't afford a lawyer for this, she said quietly. You don't need to. Cross Industries' legal team will handle everything. You're covered. Adrian, no arguments. This is my fault. I brought you into this. I'm not letting you face it alone. Over the next week, Emma learned more about corporate litigation than she'd ever wanted to know. Depositions, discovery requests, motion filings. The legal team worked around the clock building their defense. And through it all, Emma kept working, kept reviewing contracts, kept finding problems and solving them. Because Susan was right. The best defense was proving she was indispensable. One afternoon, deep in discovery documents, Emma found something. A contract between Laurent Holdings and a German manufacturing firm, dated 2 years ago, and containing the exact same translation deception they'd tried to use on Adrian. Marcus, she called. I need you to see this. Marcus came over, read the document. His eyes went wide. They've done this before. Multiple times, Emma said, pulling up more files. I found 3 other contracts with similar patterns, always targeting American companies trying to expand internationally, always using the language barrier as a weapon. This is a pattern of fraud. This is evidence. Emma's hands were shaking. This proves we weren't defaming them. We were exposing actual criminal activity. Marcus grabbed the documents. I need to get this to Richard immediately. Emma, this could change everything. He ran out. Emma sat aback, heart pounding. She'd done it again. Seen the pattern everyone else had missed, found the trap in time to disarm it. Her phone buzzed. Text from Adrian. Maya wants to know if you can come to dinner tonight. She made you a card. Emma smiled. Tell her I'll be there. Because this was her life now. Lawsuits and contract reviews and dinners with a 6-year-old who made her cards. Strange. Complicated. Imperfect. But finally hers. The card Maya had made featured a purple unicorn wearing what appeared to be a business suit and holding a briefcase. Inside, in careful 6-year-old handwriting, "Thank you for being brave. Love, Maya." Emma stared at it across the dinner table while Maya explained the artistic choices she'd made. "The briefcase has important papers in it," Maya said seriously. "Because you're always reading important papers. And the unicorn is purple because that's the leader color. And she's smiling because even though her job is hard, she likes it." "It's perfect," Emma said, voice thick. "I'm going to keep this forever." "I know," Maya said matter-of-factly. "That's why I made it nice." Adrian was cooking pasta, actual cooking, not ordering takeout, and the kitchen smelled like garlic and tomatoes and something Emma couldn't quite name. Normalcy, maybe. Home. "So," Adrian said, draining pasta at the sink, "Marcus tells me you found the smoking gun." "I found evidence that Laurent's done this before. Whether it's enough to win the case is up to the lawyers. It's enough to turn this from a he said, she said into a pattern of behavior case. Richard's already drafting a countersuit." Adrian brought the pasta to the table. "We're going after them for fraud, Emma. Real charges. Criminal charges." Maya's ears perked up. "Are the bad people going to jail?" "Maybe," Adrian said, "if we can prove they broke the law." "Emma will prove it," Maya said confidently. "She's good at finding bad people's secrets." Emma wished she had Maya's certainty. That night, after dinner and dishes, and watching Maya perform an elaborate puppet show about unicorns fighting corporate crime, Emma and Adrian sat on his back porch while Maya played inside. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said. "Always." "Are you worried? About the lawsuit?" Adrian was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I'm more worried about what it's doing to you." "I'm fine." "You're pretending to be fine." "There's a difference." He turned to face her. "Emma, you've been named in a $40 million lawsuit. That would terrify anyone. You don't have to be strong about this. If I'm not strong, I'll fall apart." "Then fall apart. I'll catch you." Emma laughed, but it came out shaky. "You can't promise that." "I can and I am." Adrian reached for her hand. "Look, I know you've spent your whole life having to handle everything alone. But you don't have to anymore. I'm here. Marcus is here. Susan's here. You have people now." "For how long?" The question hung between them. "As long as you want us," Adrian said quietly. "I know that's hard to believe, but it's true." Emma wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this wasn't temporary, that she wasn't one mistake away from losing everything. But 30 years of disappointment had taught her to protect herself. "I should go," she said, standing. "It's late." Adrian didn't argue, but his expression said he understood what she was really doing. Running, protecting herself before she could get hurt. "Emma," he said as she reached the door. "That card Maya made you? She worked on it for 3 hours. Kept starting over because she wanted it to be perfect. You know why?" Emma shook her head. "Because you matter to her. Not because of what you do or how useful you are, just because of who you are." He paused. "You matter to me too. Same reasons." Emma left before she could say something she'd regret. The next morning brought a development that changed everything. Emma arrived at the office to find Marcus, Richard, and Susan already in the conference room with 2 people she didn't recognize, a man and a woman, both professional, both serious. "Emma," Marcus said, "these are federal investigators. They want to talk to you about Laurent Holdings." Emma's stomach dropped. "Am I in trouble?" "No," the woman said quickly. She was maybe 40, with sharp eyes and sharper suit. "I'm Special Agent Chen. This is Agent Morrison. We're with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We've been investigating Laurent Holdings for securities fraud for the past 8 months. We saw the lawsuit filing," Morrison added, "and the evidence your company submitted. It corroborates what we've been building." Emma sat down slowly. "You're investigating them?" "For running an international fraud scheme," Chen said. We believe Laurent Holdings has defrauded at least 15 American companies over the past 5 years using translation manipulation and contract deception. Total damages estimated around $300 million. Emma felt dizzy. 300 million? That we know of. Could be more. Chen pulled out a tablet. Ms. Vale, we'd like to walk through exactly what happened the night you identified the fraudulent contract. Every detail you can remember. For the next 2 hours, Emma recounted the dinner at the Celestine. The translator's lies. The moment she decided to speak up, the recording that had captured everything. The agents took notes, asked follow-up questions, treated Emma's observations like they were evidence in a criminal case, which, apparently, they were. This is incredibly helpful, Chen said when they finished. Ms. Vale, would you be willing to testify if this goes to trial? Emma looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragement. Yes, she said. I'll testify. After the agents left, Emma sat in the empty conference room trying to process what had just happened. She wasn't just a defendant in a civil lawsuit anymore. She was a federal witness in a criminal investigation. Adrian found her there 20 minutes later. Marcus told me, he said, sitting next to her. How are you feeling? Terrified? Relieved? Confused? Emma laughed shakily. I thought I was just stopping a bad business deal. Turns out I accidentally exposed an international crime ring. You did more than that. You gave the FBI the evidence they needed to build a real case. Adrian's voice was gentle. Emma, do you understand what this means? That Laurent's going to jail? That you just took down one of the most sophisticated fraud operations in international business? That companies across the country are going to be safer because you paid attention when everyone else looked away? He paused. That you're a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just... If you say just a waitress, I'm going to lose my mind. Adrian turned her to face him. You are brilliant and observant and brave. When are you going to start believing that? When it stops feeling like a fluke, Emma whispered. It's not a fluke, it's who you are. Emma wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that she was actually the person Adrian and Maya seemed to think she was. But believing meant risking, and risking meant the possibility of losing everything. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You should have taken my offer. Now you're going to wish you had. Emma's blood went cold. She showed Adrian the message. His expression darkened immediately. Forward that to Agent Chen, he said. Then call security. Adrian, it's probably nothing. It's a threat. From someone who knows you turned down Thornton's job offer and is following the Laurent case. His voice was tight with controlled anger. That's not nothing. Over the next hour, security protocols were updated. Emma's office was moved to an interior room with no windows. A security guard was assigned to walk her to her car each night. This is excessive, Emma protested. This is necessary, Marcus said firmly. Emma, you're a witness in a federal case against people who've stolen hundreds of millions of dollars. They're motivated to keep you quiet. By threatening me via text message? By escalating until you back down or disappear? Marcus's voice was grim. We're not taking chances. That evening, Emma sat in her new windowless office, reviewing contracts and trying not to think about the security guard stationed outside her door. Her phone rang. Adrian. Hey, she answered. Don't go home tonight. Emma's hand tightened on the phone. What happened? Nothing happened, but Marcus got another threat assessment from the FBI. They're concerned about your safety. Adrian paused. Come stay at my place, guest room. Extra security. Maya would love it. I can't just move in with you. It's not moving in. It's accepting protection until this blows over. His voice softened. Please, Emma, I can't focus on anything else knowing you're alone in that apartment with minimal security. Emma thought about her studio in Dorchester, the broken lock on the lobby door, the neighbor who dealt drugs out of 3B, the complete absence of anything resembling security. Okay, she said quietly, but just until the FBI says it's safe. However long you need. Emma packed a bag and drove to Adrian's townhouse, the security guard following in a separate car. The absurdity of it all wasn't lost on her. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a waitress. Now she had a security detail. Maya answered the door in pajamas decorated with planets. Emma's having a sleepover, she announced to the house. Daddy said you're staying in the guest room, but you can sleep in my room if you want. I have bunk beds. The guest room is perfect, Emma said, smiling despite her anxiety. Adrian appeared behind Maya, looking relieved. You made it. Your security guy is very thorough. He checked my trunk. Good. That's his job. Adrian took her bag. Come on, I'll show you where everything is. The guest room was on the third floor, decorated in soft blues and grays, with a bed that looked more comfortable than Emma's entire apartment. There was a bathroom attached, fresh towels already laid out. Maya picked the towels, Adrian said. She insisted on the purple ones because you're the purple unicorn. Emma's throat felt tight. She's very particular about these things. She is, takes after her dad. Adrian set her bag down. I know this is weird, having to stay here because of safety concerns, but I'm glad you're here. Are you, or are you just worried? Both. He moved closer. Emma, I need you to understand something. What's happening with Laurent? With the FBI investigation, with the threats, that's all real and serious and scary. But it's also not forever. This will end, and when it does, I want you to still be here. Here in your guest room? Here in my life. Adrian reached up, cupped her face in his hand. I'm falling in love with you, maybe already there. And I know the timing is terrible and the circumstances are complicated, and you probably think I'm insane. I think you're wonderful, Emma said, and terrifying, and I don't know how to do this. Do what? Let someone in. Trust that they'll stay. She closed her eyes. Everyone leaves, Adrian. Everyone I've ever cared about has left. I'm not leaving. You can't promise that. Watch me. Adrian leaned his forehead against hers. I know you're scared. I know trusting people is hard when everyone's let you down, but I'm asking you to try, to believe that maybe this time is different. Emma opened her eyes, found him watching her with an expression so open it hurt. What if I disappoint you? Impossible. What if I'm not who you think I am? You're exactly who I think you are. You just haven't accepted it yet. Emma kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't thought through, just an instinct born of too many emotions and not enough words. Adrian made a surprised sound, but then he was kissing her back, gentle and careful, like she was something precious. When they pulled apart, Emma was shaking. That was probably a mistake, she whispered. That was perfect. Adrian smiled. But also probably something we should talk about when you're not staying in my house under duress. Agreed. So we'll talk about it later. Later, Emma confirmed. But later felt impossibly far away when Adrian was looking at her like that. Footsteps on the stairs. Maya's voice calling, Are you guys done being mushy? I want to show Emma my rock collection. Adrian laughed, stepped back. We're coming, sweetness. He left, and Emma sat on the edge of the guest bed, trying to remember how to breathe normally. She just kissed her boss who was being sued for $40 million. Her boss whose 6-year-old daughter collected rocks and made cards about purple unicorns. Her boss who'd just said he was falling in love with her. This was a disaster. This was perfect. This was absolutely terrifying. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings and security protocols and stolen moments with Adrian when Maya was asleep or at school. The FBI's case against Laurent Holdings grew stronger daily. More victims came forward. More evidence surfaced. The fraud scheme was even bigger than initially estimated, closer to $500 million across 20 countries. And Emma was at the center of it all. She gave depositions, reviewed evidence, helped investigators understand the translation patterns Laurent had used, became, against all odds, an expert in international fraud detection. The media picked up the story. Suddenly, Emma's face was on business news websites. The waitress who took down a fraud ring. From service industry to FBI witness. How one woman's language skills exposed international crime. Emma hated the attention, hated being the story instead of just living her life. But she showed up anyway, testified anyway. Did the work anyway. Because Susan was right. The best way to prove you belonged was to be indispensable. One evening, Emma was reviewing case files in Adrian's study when Maya appeared in the doorway holding a stuffed unicorn. Emma, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetie. Maya climbed into the chair across from her. Are you going to stay? Emma's heart squeezed. Stay where? Here, with us. Daddy says you're just staying until the bad people are caught, but I want you to stay forever. Emma didn't know what to say. How to explain adult complications to a 6-year-old who saw the world in simple truths. I care about you and your dad very much, Emma said carefully, but things are complicated right now. Daddy says that too, but I don't think they're that complicated. Maya hugged her unicorn. You like us. We like you. That's not complicated. Sometimes feelings are complicated even when they're simple. Maya considered this with the seriousness of someone much older. Do you love my daddy? Emma's breath caught. Maya, it's okay if you do. I won't be weird about it. Maya smiled. I think he loves you too. He smiles different now, like he's happy inside instead of just pretending. Out of the mouths of children. Your dad is very special, Emma said quietly. And so are you. That's not an answer. I know. Emma reached across the desk, took Maya's hand. But it's the best one I have right now. Maya nodded, satisfied. Okay, but when you figure it out, you should tell him, because he's not good at guessing. She left, and Emma sat alone with her case files and her feelings and the uncomfortable truth that a 6-year-old had just seen right through her. The trial date was set for December. Laurent's lawyers fought it, filed motion after motion for dismissal, tried every legal trick to delay or derail the proceedings. But the evidence was overwhelming, and Emma was the star witness. You ready for this? Agent Chen asked during a prep session. Emma looked at the courtroom sketches, the evidence binders, the transcripts of depositions. Not really. Good. Overconfidence gets witnesses in trouble. Nervous witnesses pay attention. Chen smiled. You're going to be fine, Ms. Vale. Just tell the truth like you've been doing. What if the truth isn't enough? It always is. Eventually. Emma wished she had Chen's certainty. The week before the trial, Emma finally moved back to her own apartment. The immediate threat had passed, security had cleared her, and staying in Adrian's guest room was becoming too complicated for all the obvious reasons. Adrian drove her home, helped carry her bags up the 5 flights of stairs. This place is terrible, he said, looking around her studio. How long have you lived here? 4 years. Emma, the lock on your door is held together with duct tape. I know. Landlord keeps promising to fix it. Adrian pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Calling my property manager. You're moving. I can't afford to move. I own a building in the South End with vacant units. You can have one at whatever rent you're paying here. Emma stared at him. You can't just give me an apartment. I'm not giving you anything. I'm offering you a lease at your current rate in a building with actual security and working locks. That's basically giving me an apartment. Then consider it hazard pay for being my star witness in a federal fraud case. Adrian's voice softened. Emma, please. I can't sleep knowing you're in a building with a broken lobby door and dealers in the hallway. People live like this, Adrian. Most people, actually. I know. And it's not right. But you don't have to anymore. He put his phone away. At least come look at the unit. If you hate it, you can stay here. Emma looked around her studio, at the water stain on the ceiling, the radiator that clanked all night, the window that wouldn't fully close. Okay, she said. I'll look. The apartment Adrian showed her the next day was on the 3rd floor of a renovated brownstone. Hardwood floors, updated kitchen, bathroom with actual water pressure, windows that locked, a bedroom separate from the living room. It was 3 times the size of her studio and probably cost 10 times as much. I can't afford this, Emma said. It's the same rent you're paying now. Adrian, I'm serious. Check the lease. He handed her a document. The monthly rent was exactly what she paid for her studio. I need tenants. You need housing. It's mutually beneficial. Emma read the lease. It was legitimate, legal, exactly what he'd promised. Why are you doing this? Because I care about you. Because you deserve better than duct tape and broken locks. Because I can help and I want to. Adrian moved closer. Let me do this, Emma. Please. Emma thought about Maya's question, about whether she loved Adrian. Looking at him now, at the genuine concern in his eyes, the way he was trying to help without making her feel like charity, she knew the answer. Okay, she said. I'll take it. Adrian's smile could have lit the city. Emma moved in over Thanksgiving weekend. Adrian and Maya helped, turning it into an adventure that involved pizza and furniture assembly and Maya's very specific opinions about where everything should go. The couch has to face the window, Maya insisted, so you can see the street and know when we're coming to visit. Are you planning to visit often? Emma asked. Every day, Maya said confidently. Daddy's building is only 2 blocks away. We can walk. Adrian met Emma's eyes over Maya's head, expression soft. Every day might be excessive, he said. Every day is perfect, Maya corrected. Emma's family now. Family visits every day. Emma's throat went tight. Family. She'd never had that. Never had people who showed up, who stayed, who made her part of something bigger than survival. Every day it is, she said. Maya beamed. That night, after Maya had fallen asleep on Emma's new couch and Adrian had carried her home, Emma stood in her new apartment and let herself cry. Good tears for once. Happy tears. Tears of someone who'd finally found a place to land. The trial started on a Monday. Emma wore her best suit, new, purchased specifically for this because Susan had insisted she look professional and polished and impossible to dismiss. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, investors, representatives from the companies Laurent had defrauded, and Laurent himself sitting at the defense table with 5 high-priced lawyers and an expression of absolute contempt. Emma took the stand and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor was a woman named Henderson, sharp and methodical. She walked Emma through the night at the Celestine, the contract review, the moment of recognition. And what did you do when you realized the translator was lying? Henderson asked. I spoke up, Emma said. I told Mr. Cross that if he signed the contract, he'd be giving away his company. Even though you were just a waitress, even though you had no official standing in that room. Yes. Why? Emma looked at the jury, 12 ordinary people who would decide Laurent's fate. Because it was wrong, she said simply. And because I knew what it felt like to be cheated by people with more power than you. I couldn't watch it happen to someone else and stay quiet. The defense attorney tried to rattle her during cross-examination, questioned her credentials, her motivations, her relationship with Adrian. Isn't it true, Ms. Vale, that you're romantically involved with Mr. Cross? Objection, Henderson called. Relevance? Goes to bias, Your Honor. The judge considered. I'll allow it. Emma took a breath. Mr. Cross and I are close friends. Nothing more. It wasn't technically a lie. They hadn't defined what they were, hadn't labeled it beyond stolen kisses and late-night conversations and Maya calling her family. But it felt like a lie anyway. The defense attorney pressed, asked about the apartment, the job, the education fund, tried to paint Emma as someone who'd fabricated evidence to benefit her benefactor. Emma held her ground, answered every question calmly, honestly, without anger or defensiveness, just the truth. When she finally stepped down, Adrian was waiting in the hallway. You were incredible, he said. I was terrified. You were brave. There's a difference. He pulled her into a hug, not caring who saw. It's almost over. But it wasn't over. Because the next day, Laurent's team brought their own witnesses, including someone Emma had never expected to see. The translator from that night at the Celestine. He took the stand and claimed Emma had misunderstood, that his translations had been accurate, that she'd fabricated the fraud to impress Adrian Cross. Emma sat in the gallery and felt her credibility crumbling. Everything came down to this: her word against a certified translator with 20 years of experience. The waitress against the professional, the nobody against the expert. Henderson fought back hard during cross-examination, played the recording from that night, brought in independent translators who confirmed Emma's version. But doubt had been planted. Emma could see it in the jury's faces. That evening, she sat in her new apartment and stared at the walls, wondering if she'd just destroyed everything she'd built. Her phone rang. Adrian. Don't, she said when she answered. Don't what? Don't tell me it's going to be okay. Don't tell me the jury will believe me. Don't make promises you can't keep. Silence on the other end. Then, okay, I won't promise anything, but I will tell you this. Whatever happens with the trial, you did the right thing. You told the truth. You fought back, and that matters regardless of the verdict. It doesn't matter if Laurent walks free. It matters to me. It matters to Maya. It matters to every person who's going to be safer because you were brave enough to speak up. Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. Emma, you changed everything. Win or lose, you changed everything. Emma closed her eyes. I'm scared. I know, me too. What if I let everyone down? You couldn't, not possible. Emma wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that her worth wasn't tied to the verdict, that she mattered regardless of whether 12 strangers believed her story. But a lifetime of being told she wasn't enough was hard to shake. The jury deliberated for 3 days. 3 days of waiting, wondering, trying to work but unable to focus. Emma reviewed contracts mechanically, attended meetings, went through the motions, and waited. On the 3rd day, the call came. Verdict was in. Emma sat between Adrian and Marcus in the courtroom gallery, hands shaking. The jury filed in. 12 faces, expressionless. Has the jury reached a verdict? The judge asked. We have, Your Honor. Emma couldn't breathe. On the charge of wire fraud, how do you find? Guilty. The word hit like thunder. On the charge of securities fraud? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud? Guilty. All counts. Every single one. Laurent's face went white. Emma felt Adrian's hand find hers, squeezed tight. The courtroom erupted, journalists rushing for doors, victims crying with relief, Laurent's lawyers immediately filing for appeal. But it was over. They'd won. Emma had won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Emma stood on the steps with Adrian and let Henderson field the questions while she tried to process what had just happened. Justice. Real, actual justice. Not luck, not a fluke. Her truth, believed and validated and upheld. How do you feel, Miss Vale? A reporter called. Emma looked at the cameras, at the crowd, at Adrian standing beside her. I feel like I did my job, she said simply. Nothing more. But it was more. So much more than she'd ever imagined possible. That night, Adrian took her and Maya out for dinner at a restaurant where Emma had once worked as a hostess. The manager recognized her, did a double take. Emma? Emma Vale? Hi, Robert. I saw you on the news. You're the one who... He stopped, laughed. I can't believe you used to work here. Seems like a long time ago, Emma said. Because it was. That version of Emma, quiet, invisible, afraid, felt like a stranger now. Over dinner, Maya presented Emma with another drawing. This one showed 3 stick figures holding hands, purple unicorn, smaller unicorn, and a taller figure labeled Daddy. We're a family, Maya announced, so I drew us as a family. Adrian looked at Emma, question in his eyes. Emma looked at this little girl who'd claimed her from the start, at this man who'd seen past her defenses and refused to let her hide, at this life she'd accidentally stumbled into and somehow earned. Yeah, she said softly. We are. And for the first time in 30 years, Emma believed it. The week after the verdict, Emma started her MBA program at Boston University. She walked into the first class, Corporate Finance 101, and took a seat in the back row out of habit. The room filled with students who looked like they'd come straight from corner offices and consulting firms, designer bags, confident postures, the easy assurance of people who'd never questioned whether they belonged. Emma opened her laptop and tried not to think about the fact that she was older than half the class and more famous than all of them. You're Emma Vale, the woman next to her said. Not a question. Yes. I saw you on Bloomberg, the Laurent case. The woman extended her hand. Rachel Chen, I'm in corporate law. That testimony you gave was textbook perfect. I was terrified the entire time. Couldn't tell. You seemed completely composed. Rachel smiled. Looking forward to having you in class. Real-world experience beats theory every time. The professor walked in, and Emma realized with a start that she recognized him. Professor Mitchell had written 3 of the textbooks she'd studied while preparing for the Laurent trial. Welcome to corporate finance, he said, scanning the room. His eyes landed on Emma, and he paused. Ms. Vale, glad to have you here. Your work on the Laurent case will be excellent case study material for this class. 20 heads turned to look at Emma. She felt her face flush but held his gaze. Happy to contribute. After class, Mitchell asked her to stay. I wanted to tell you something, he said when the room had emptied. I've been teaching corporate finance for 15 years. I've had students from Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, smart kids, ambitious kids, but very few of them have ever done anything that actually mattered outside a spreadsheet. Emma didn't know what to say. You took down a $500 million fraud operation, Mitchell continued. You protected companies, saved jobs, exposed criminals. That's what this degree is supposed to prepare people to do. You've already done it. He smiled. So when you feel like you don't belong here, remember that you're the only person in this room who's already proven why this education matters. Emma walked out of that classroom with her head higher than when she'd walked in. December brought early snow and the kind of cold that made Boston feel like it was punishing you for living there. Emma spent her mornings at Cross Industries reviewing contracts, her afternoons in MBA classes, and her evenings either studying or at Adrian's townhouse with Maya. The rhythm of it felt sustainable, almost normal, except for the part where she was falling more in love with Adrian every day and had no idea what to do about it. They hadn't talked about the kiss, hadn't defined what they were to each other beyond colleagues and friends and co-parents to a 6-year-old who kept drawing them as a family unit. Emma knew she should bring it up, have the conversation, be an adult about it. But every time she tried, fear caught her throat. What if he'd changed his mind? What if the trial had been too much stress and he'd realized she was too complicated, too damaged, too much work? What if she finally said, I love you, and he didn't say it back? The Thursday before Christmas, Emma was working late when Susan stopped by her office. You're still here, Susan observed. Final contracts review before the holiday break. Emma, it's 8 p.m. on a Thursday. The contracts will survive until Monday. Susan sat down. Can I give you some advice? Always. Stop punishing yourself. Emma looked up. What? You're working 14-hour days, taking a full MBA course load, volunteering for every difficult assignment that comes through. You're trying to prove you deserve to be here. Susan's voice was gentle but firm. You already proved it. Now you're just exhausting yourself. I'm fine. You're running on fumes and fear. Susan leaned forward. Emma, I've watched you for 3 months now. You're brilliant at what you do, but you're also terrified that the moment you slow down, someone's going to realize you don't belong and take it all away. Emma felt exposed. Is it that obvious? Only to people who've been there. Susan smiled sadly. I worked 80-hour weeks for my first 5 years at Cross Industries. Took every case, never said no, barely slept. I thought if I just worked hard enough, I'd finally feel secure. You know what happened? What? I burned out. Had a panic attack in the middle of a deposition and ended up in the ER. Susan paused. Adrian found me there, sat with me for 6 hours, and when I tried to apologize for being weak, he told me something I've never forgotten. What did he say? He said that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about knowing when to stop before you shatter completely. Susan stood. Go home, Emma. Rest. Spend time with people who matter. The work will be here Monday. But if you keep going like this, you won't be. Emma sat alone in her office after Susan left, staring at contracts that suddenly seemed less important than they had an hour ago. Her phone buzzed. Text from Adrian. Maya wants to know if you're coming for dinner. She made a gingerbread house and needs an expert opinion. Emma looked at the stack of work on her desk, then at her phone. She texted back, Be there in 20 minutes. The work could wait. Christmas Eve found Emma in Adrian's kitchen helping Maya decorate cookies while Adrian attempted to assemble a bicycle that Maya didn't know she was getting. This one's you, Maya said, holding up a cookie decorated with purple icing. And this one's Daddy. And this one's me. We're a cookie family. We're a delicious cookie family, Emma said. Maya giggled. Can I ask you something? Sure, sweetie. Are you going to marry Daddy? Emma nearly dropped the icing bag. What? My friend Zoe says when adults like each other and spend all their time together, they get married. You and Daddy like each other, right? Emma glanced toward the living room where Adrian was cursing softly at bicycle instructions. Your daddy and I are friends. But you love him. It wasn't a question. Emma looked at this impossibly perceptive 6-year-old who saw truth like other people saw colors. Yeah, she said quietly. I do. Then why don't you tell him? Because sometimes love is complicated. Why? Because people get scared. Because we worry about losing things we care about. Because we've been hurt before, and we're afraid it'll happen again. Maya considered this with the gravity of a philosopher. That's silly. Why? Because if you love someone and they love you back, you should just be together. Worrying about it doesn't change anything. It just makes you sad while you wait. Out of the mouths of children. When did you get so wise? Emma asked. I'm 6.5, Maya said seriously. That's very old. Adrian appeared in the doorway, covered in bike grease and frustration. That bicycle is an engineering nightmare. I have 3 extra parts and no idea where they go. Need help? Emma asked. Desperately. They left Maya decorating cookies and went to the living room. Emma looked at the half-assembled bicycle and the instruction manual written in what appeared to be 3 languages, none of them helpful. Okay, she said. Let's figure this out. They worked together in comfortable silence, Emma reading instructions while Adrian assembled pieces. At some point, their hands brushed, and neither pulled away. At some point, Adrian's shoulder pressed against hers, and Emma leaned into the warmth. Emma, Adrian said quietly, we need to talk. Emma's heart stuttered. About? About us. About what we're doing here. He set down a wrench. I told you I was falling in love with you. That was months ago. And we've just existed around it, not talking about it, not dealing with it. I know. I need to know where you stand because I can't keep doing this halfway thing where we're more than friends but less than together. It's killing me. Emma took a breath. I'm scared. Of what? Of all of it. Of loving you and losing you. Of Maya getting attached and then something happening and her losing another person who matters. Emma's voice cracked. I've lost everything I've ever cared about, Adrian. I don't know how to trust that this will be different. So we just stay stuck? Forever in limbo because you're afraid? I don't know what else to do. Adrian turned to face her fully. You could choose to believe me. When I say I'm not going anywhere, when I say you matter to me and Maya, when I say I love you and I want to build a life with you, his voice was rough with emotion. You could choose to trust that maybe this time you get to keep something good. What if I don't know how? Then I'll teach you. Adrian reached for her hand. Emma, I know you've been hurt. I know people have let you down your whole life. But I'm asking you to take a risk on me, on us, because I think we could be something amazing if you just let yourself believe it. Emma looked at him. This man who'd seen her when she was invisible, who'd believed in her when she didn't believe in herself, who'd given her a chance to become someone she'd never imagined she could be. And she thought about what Maya had said. Worrying doesn't change anything. It just makes you sad while you wait. I love you, Emma said. I've loved you for months. Maybe from the moment you looked at me in that conference room and asked my name like it mattered. Adrian's expression broke into pure relief. Emma, but I'm still scared, and I'm still going to be messy and complicated and probably a disaster at relationship things because I've never had a healthy model for any of this. I don't care. You should care. I'm serious about this, Adrian. I don't know how to do family. I don't know how to be a partner or a mother figure or anything other than alone. And I'm terrified I'm going to screw this up. Then we'll screw it up together. Adrian pulled her closer. Emma, I'm a single dad who works 80-hour weeks and has the emotional availability of a brick wall. I'm not exactly a prize either, but I think we could figure it out if you're willing to try. Emma looked toward the kitchen where Maya was singing Christmas carols to her cookies. What about Maya? We can't just decide to be together without thinking about how it affects her. Maya loves you, has from the start. Adrian smiled. Pretty sure she's been trying to set us up since November. She asked me if we were getting married. What did you say? I told her love was complicated. And what did she say? That worrying about it doesn't change anything. It just makes you sad while you wait. Emma laughed wetly. She's smarter than both of us. She really is. Adrian cupped Emma's face in his hands. So let's stop waiting. Let's stop being scared. Let's just be together. Emma kissed him. Not hesitant this time, not stolen or secret, just honest and full and real. When they pulled apart, Maya was standing in the doorway holding a cookie. Finally, she said, You guys were taking forever. How long have you been standing there? Adrian asked. Long enough to know you're being mushy again. Maya grinned. It's okay. I like when you're mushy. It means Emma's staying. Emma looked at this little girl who'd claimed her as family before Emma had even accepted it herself. Yeah, Emma said. I'm staying. Maya launched herself at them, cookie and all, and they ended up in a tangle on the floor surrounded by bicycle parts and frosting and the kind of joy Emma had stopped believing existed. The new year brought changes that felt both terrifying and right. Emma officially moved her things into Adrian's townhouse, not because she had to, but because Maya had converted the guest room into an art studio and declared that Emma's apartment was too far away for family. Adrian introduced her to the board as his partner, both professionally and personally. Some of the board members looked surprised. Most looked like they'd been expecting this for months. About time, one of them said. You two have been dancing around it since October. Emma started teaching a section at BU as a guest lecturer, real-world applications of international contract law. Her first class had 40 students. By the third week, it had 60, with people auditing just to hear her break down the Laurent case. And she kept working at Cross Industries, but differently now. Not trying to prove herself with every assignment, just doing excellent work because that's who she was. In February, Laurent was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Emma didn't attend the sentencing, didn't need the closure. She'd already moved past it. March brought Maya's 7th birthday and a party that Emma co-hosted with an anxiety that Adrian found hilarious. It's 15 six-year-olds eating cake, he said, not a corporate merger. They're scarier than corporate mergers, Emma insisted. At least executives don't throw cupcakes. The party went fine. Maya declared it the best birthday ever. Emma found purple frosting in her hair for 3 days afterward and decided Adrian had been right about the merger comparison. In April, Emma graduated from her first semester of the MBA program with a 4.0 GPA. Adrian and Maya came to the small ceremony, Maya holding a sign that said, Emma is the smartest, in purple glitter. I'm not the smartest, Emma protested. You're the smartest to us, Maya said. That counts more. In May, Cross Industries announced a new division, International Contract Security, headed by Emma Vale. Her job was to train other companies on how to spot fraud, how to verify translations, how to protect themselves from the kind of trap Laurent had set. The business press wrote articles about it, called it innovative, called Emma a pioneer. Emma just called it doing work that mattered. But the moment that changed everything came in June. Emma was in her office reviewing a training manual when Adrian appeared with Maya, both of them looking nervous. We need to talk to you about something, Adrian said. Emma's stomach dropped. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Adrian looked at Maya, who nodded encouragement. It's just, we've been thinking about our family, about how it's structured. Okay? Maya stepped forward. Emma, you're basically my mom now. You help with homework and make me lunch and tell me when I'm being bratty, but you're not officially my mom, and we want you to be. Emma's breath stopped. We know it's fast, Adrian said quickly. We know we've only been together for 6 months officially, but it feels right. And Maya and I, we want you to be part of this family in every way. Legally, officially, permanently. He pulled out a small box. Emma's hands went to her mouth. Emma Vale, Adrian said, opening the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond. Will you marry me? Will you be Maya's mom and my wife and part of this weird, beautiful family we've built? Emma looked at them. This man who'd seen her worth before she'd seen it herself. This little girl who'd claimed her as family from the start. And she thought about the woman she'd been a year ago. The waitress who'd been invisible. Who'd believed she didn't deserve good things. Who'd built walls so high no one could climb them. That woman was gone. In her place was someone who'd learned that being seen was terrifying and wonderful. That family wasn't about biology or perfection. It was about showing up and choosing each other every day. That she was allowed to have good things, to keep them, to believe they were real. Yes, Emma said, tears streaming down her face. Yes to all of it. Adrian slipped the ring on her finger while Maya cheered and did a victory dance that looked like it involved martial arts. We're a real family now, Maya announced, the official kind. We were always a real family, Emma said, pulling her into a hug. This just makes it paperwork official. Paperwork is important, Maya said seriously. Daddy says that all the time. They got married in September in a small ceremony at the courthouse with Maya as the flower girl and Marcus as Adrian's best man and Susan as Emma's maid of honor. Emma wore a simple white dress. Adrian wore a suit. Maya wore a purple tutu because she insisted flower girls should be fancy and sparkly. The judge who married them was the same judge who'd presided over the Laurent trial. "I married a lot of people," she said after the ceremony. "But this is the first time I've married a couple who met because one of them stopped a fraud scheme. That's got to be good luck." The reception was at Adrian's townhouse, their townhouse now, with 50 people who'd become Emma's family over the past year. Co-workers, classmates, Maya's friends and their parents, Mrs. Chen from Emma's old apartment building who'd loaned her an iron that first morning. Everyone who'd been part of Emma's transformation from invisible to essential. During the toasts, Susan stood up. A year ago, Emma walked into Cross Industries convinced she didn't belong. Convinced she wasn't qualified, wasn't credentialed, wasn't enough. Susan smiled. Today she runs our fastest growing division, teaches at one of the top business schools in the country, and is married to my boss, which makes family dinners very confusing from an org chart perspective. Laughter rippled through the room. But more than that, Susan continued, Emma proved something I think we all need to remember. That your worth isn't defined by where you started or what degrees you have or whether people believe in you. It's defined by what you do when the moment comes, by whether you speak up when it's easier to stay quiet, by whether you choose courage over comfort. Susan raised her glass. To Emma, who chose courage and changed everything. To Emma, the room echoed. Emma stood, overwhelmed, and felt Adrian's hand find hers under the table. "I should say something," she whispered. "You don't have to." "I want to." She stood, glass in hand, looking at all these faces. A year ago, I was serving drinks in a private dining room and trying to be invisible. Trying not to be noticed, not to matter, not to take up space. Emma's voice was steady. I'd spent my whole life believing that people like me didn't get to have lives like this. That we survived, maybe, but we didn't thrive. We didn't get chosen. We didn't get to keep good things. She looked at Adrian, at Maya, sitting on her dad's lap. And then I met you. And you saw me. Not who I thought I should be, not who I was trying to be. Just me. And you made me believe that maybe I was worth seeing. Emma's throat was tight. So this isn't just a wedding. It's not just paperwork or a legal contract. It's me finally accepting that I get to have this, that I'm allowed to be happy, that I'm allowed to belong. She raised her glass higher. To everyone in this room who believed in me before I believed in myself, thank you for giving me a family. Thank you for giving me a home. Thank you for teaching me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and doing it anyway. The room erupted in applause. Later, after the guests had left and Maya had fallen asleep in her room surrounded by cake-stained stuffed animals, Emma and Adrian stood on the back porch looking at the city lights. Happy? Adrian asked. Terrified, Emma admitted. But yes, very happy. The terrified part gets easier. Does it? Not really. But you get better at living with it. Adrian pulled her close. I'm proud of you, for all of it, but especially for letting yourself have this. I almost didn't. I know. I almost ran away about 6 different times. I know that too. Adrian kissed her forehead. But you didn't. You stayed. You chose this. That's what matters. Emma thought about the woman she'd been, the foster kid, the waitress, the person who'd believed she wasn't allowed to want things. That woman had saved a billionaire's company because she'd seen a trap and refused to stay silent. And in doing so, she'd saved herself. Not from poverty or obscurity or invisibility, though she'd escaped all of those. She'd saved herself from the belief that she didn't deserve to be saved. I love you, Emma said. Both of you. This whole weird, beautiful mess of a family. We love you too, Adrian said. Welcome home, Emma Vale. And standing there in the autumn air with her husband's arms around her and her daughter sleeping upstairs, and a life she'd built from courage and chance, Emma finally believed it. She was home, not because of where she lived or what she did or who she'd married, but because she'd finally learned the most important lesson of all, that being seen wasn't dangerous. Being invisible was. And she was done hiding. 2 years later, Emma stood in front of a room full of business students at Boston University, teaching her fourth semester of international contract law. The class had grown to 90 students. Word had spread that Professor Vale didn't just teach theory, she taught survival. The Laurent case, she said, pulling up the now famous contract on the screen, wasn't won because I had a law degree or corporate training. It was won because I understood something that credentials can't teach you. A hand went up. What's that, Professor? Emma smiled. That the people trying to cheat you are counting on you to assume you're not smart enough to catch them. They're counting on you to stay quiet, to defer to experts, to trust that someone else will notice the problem. She paused. The moment you realize that your perspective matters, that what you see and know and understand has value, that's when you become dangerous to people who profit from your silence. After class, a young woman approached Emma's desk. She looked nervous, clutching her backpack like a shield. Professor Vale, can I ask you something personal? Sure. I saw your story about how you were a waitress before all this. The student's voice was quiet. I'm working 3 jobs to pay for school, no family support, and sometimes I wonder if I even belong here. If people like me are supposed to have careers like this. Emma saw herself in this girl, saw the doubt and fear and desperate hope. What's your name? She asked. Maria. Maria, can I tell you something? Please. 2 years ago, I was where you are. Convinced I didn't belong. Convinced that people like us, people who had to fight for everything, weren't supposed to make it. Emma leaned forward. But here's what I learned. The fact that you had to fight for it means you understand its value in ways privileged people never will. You see traps they miss. You ask questions they don't think to ask. You work harder because you know what it's like to have nothing. But what if I fail? Then you fail, and you get back up because that's what people like us do. Emma smiled. You belong here, Maria. Not despite where you came from, but because of it. Don't forget that. The girl left with tears in her eyes and her head held higher. Emma packed up her materials and headed to Cross Industries, where she had a meeting with a new client, a tech startup that had been approached by overseas investors with contracts that seemed too good to be true. They were. Emma found the traps in 20 minutes, saved the company from a hostile takeover disguised as a partnership. Just another Tuesday. That evening, she came home to find Maya, now 9, doing homework at the kitchen table while Adrian attempted to cook something that involved a recipe and actual measuring cups. How was school? Emma asked Maya. Good. We're learning about women in business, and I did my report on you. On me? You saved companies and caught bad guys, and you used to be a waitress. That's way cooler than most people's moms. Maya looked up. Is it weird that I told everyone my mom is basically a superhero? Emma's heart squeezed. She'd legally adopted Maya 6 months after the wedding, but Maya had been calling her mom since the engagement. Not weird at all, Emma said, ruffling Maya's hair. Good, because Tommy said his mom is a lawyer and I said my mom catches criminals, so I win. Adrian laughed from the stove. I'm not sure motherhood is a competition, sweetness. Everything's a competition if you try hard enough, Maya said sagely. That night, after Maya was asleep and the dishes were done, Emma and Adrian sat on the couch with wine and comfortable silence. Susan's retiring next year, Adrian said casually. She wants to recommend you as her replacement. Emma nearly spilled her wine. As general counsel? Adrian, I'm not even a lawyer. You will be. You're graduating law school in May. Emma had started law school part-time the year after her MBA. Because Susan had been right. Credentials mattered, even when you'd already proven yourself. That's still different from being general counsel of a major corporation. Emma. Adrian turned to face her. You've been doing the job for 2 years. You run the contract security division. You consult on every major deal we make. You teach law students how to spot fraud. You're published in 3 academic journals. What exactly are you not qualified for? I don't know. It just feels like too much too fast. Or maybe it feels like finally getting everything you deserved all along. Emma thought about that. About the waitress she'd been. About the woman she'd become. About the life she'd built not through luck or charity, but through courage and competence and refusing to stay invisible. Okay, she said. Tell Susan I'm interested. Adrian grinned. Already did. She said, and I quote, about damn time she stopped underestimating herself. Emma laughed. She would say that. 3 years after that, Emma was promoted to General Counsel of Cross Industries. The announcement made the business press. Former waitress turned top legal executive. The ultimate rags to riches story. Except it wasn't about rags to riches. It was about being seen, being believed in, being given a chance, and then taking that chance and building something that mattered. On her first day in the new role, Emma walked into her office, corner suite, city views, her name on the door, and found a card on her desk. Inside was a drawing of a purple unicorn wearing a judge's robe. The caption read, "Still the leader, still the bravest. Love, Maya." Emma put it in a frame next to her law degree and her MBA and the articles about the Laurent case. Reminders of where she'd been, where she was going, who she'd become. That evening, she came home to Adrian cooking dinner and Maya practicing a presentation for school about people who changed industries. "Who are you presenting on?" Emma asked. "You," Maya said. "Obviously, you literally changed how companies do international business. That's industry changing." "I just caught some fraud." "Mom." Maya gave her the look that meant she was being ridiculous. "You created an entire new field. You teach people how to protect themselves. Companies across the country hire you to review their contracts. You wrote the textbook we're using in my business class." She paused. "Stop downplaying yourself. It's annoying." Adrian snorted from the kitchen. "She's got you there." Emma looked at her daughter, confident, brilliant, kind, and realized Maya would never struggle with feeling invisible, would never question whether she deserved good things, would never make herself small to fit into spaces that were too small for her, because she'd grown up watching Emma refuse to do those things. "You're right," Emma said. "I changed an industry. I matter. I'm kind of a big deal." Maya grinned. "Now you're getting it." 5 years after the Laurent verdict, Emma was invited to speak at the FBI's National Conference on Financial Crimes. She stood on stage in front of 500 federal agents and corporate investigators and told them the story of how a waitress had accidentally exposed a $500 million fraud scheme. "The lesson here isn't that I'm special," Emma said. "It's that I was paying attention when everyone else assumed someone else was handling it. I asked questions. I trusted my instincts. I refused to stay quiet even though speaking up was terrifying." She paused, looking at the audience. Every single person in this room has the power to be that person, to see what others miss, to speak up when it's easier to stay silent, to believe that your perspective matters. Emma's voice was strong, certain. The people who profit from fraud and deception are counting on you to doubt yourselves, to defer to authority, to assume you're not qualified to question what doesn't feel right. Don't give them that power. The applause was thunderous. After the speech, a young FBI agent approached Emma. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say thank you. Your testimony in the Laurent case inspired me to join the Bureau. I wanted to be part of stopping people like him." Emma shook her hand. "Then go stop them. The world needs people who give a damn." That night, Emma flew home to Boston. Adrian and Maya picked her up at the airport, Maya holding a sign that said, "Welcome home, Mom, the famous person." "The sign's a bit much," Emma said. "The sign is perfect," Maya corrected. "You gave a speech to 500 people. That makes you famous." "I'm not famous." "Mom, stop." Maya grabbed her hand. "You're famous to us. You're important to us. And you're really good at what you do. Accept it." Emma looked at Adrian, who shrugged. "She's 11. They're very direct at 11. "Fine," Emma said. "I accept that I'm mildly important and moderately good at my job." "We'll work on your self-assessment skills," Maya said seriously. They drove home through the city Emma had once navigated as an invisible person trying to survive. Past the Celestine Club where she'd served drinks and kept her head down. Past her old studio apartment in Dorchester with its broken locks and dealers in the hallway. Past all the places she'd been small and scared and convinced she didn't matter. She mattered now. Not because of her title or her salary or her reputation, but because she'd learned that mattering was a choice, a decision to be visible, to speak up, to trust that what she saw and knew and felt had value. At home, Maya went to bed and Adrian made tea, and Emma sat in the kitchen of the life she'd built and felt something she'd rarely felt before. Peace. Not perfect peace, not the absence of fear or doubt or struggle, but the peace of knowing she was enough, that she'd earned this, that she belonged. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked. "That waitress," Emma said. "The one I used to be. What about her? I wish I could tell her it gets better, that she's going to be okay, that all the pain and fear and invisibility, it's going to lead somewhere good." "I think she knows," Adrian said gently. "I think every brave thing you do now is you telling her that." Emma leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of her husband, the quiet of her home, the steady rhythm of a life she'd built through courage and chance, and refusing to accept that people like her didn't get happy endings. Because the truth was this: there were no people like her. There were just people who'd been hurt, and people who'd been helped, and people who chose what to do with both. Emma had chosen courage, and courage had given her everything. The next morning, Emma woke to Maya shaking her shoulder. Mom, wake up. You're on the news." Emma stumbled downstairs to find the morning business show featuring a segment about her FBI speech. The headline read, "From Waitress to General Counsel, Emma Vale's Unlikely Rise." They showed clips from her speech, interviewed legal experts about her impact on international contract law, called her a pioneer, a visionary, proof that talent could come from anywhere. "How does it feel," the anchor asked, "to be a role model for people who think they can't make it in corporate America?" Emma watched herself on screen, confident, articulate, certain. Nothing like the terrified waitress who'd once been too afraid to speak up in a room full of powerful people. "It feels like responsibility," TV Emma said. "Every person who contacts me saying they were inspired by my story, that's someone I have to show up for, someone I have to prove to that the system can work if you're brave enough to challenge it." Maya muted the TV. "That's a good answer. Thanks. But you should have mentioned me. I'm part of your success story." "How do you figure?" "I gave you confidence and good drawing advice. That's important." Adrian laughed, appearing with coffee. "Everything is about you when you're 11. "Everything is about me always," Maya corrected. "I'm just more honest about it at 11. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Ms. Vale, you don't know me, but I'm a waitress in Chicago, and I just saw your interview. I speak 4 languages, and I've always been afraid to try for anything better. Your story made me think maybe I could." "Thank you." Emma stared at the message, tears pricking her eyes. She texted back, "You absolutely can. And when you do, remember, you're not an imposter. You're just someone who sees things differently. That's your superpower." The response came immediately. "Thank you. I'm going to try." Emma showed the exchange to Adrian. "That's the real impact," he said quietly. "Not the job title or the speeches or the news coverage. It's that message, that person who's going to take a risk because you showed them it's possible." "No pressure," Emma said, but she was smiling. Because that was the point, wasn't it? Not to be perfect or flawless or some impossible ideal. Just to show up, to try, to prove that courage was available to anyone willing to reach for it. That evening, Emma got a call from the dean at BU. "Emma, I have a proposition for you. We want to create an endowed scholarship for students from non-traditional backgrounds. Foster care, poverty, first-generation college students, people who might not think they belong in higher education." The dean paused. "We'd like to name it after you, the Emma Vale Scholarship for Academic Courage." Emma sat down. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Let us help more people like you find their way." "How many students?" 10 full scholarships per year, tuition, housing, living expenses, everything they need to focus on learning instead of surviving. Emma thought about all the time she'd chosen between textbooks and food, between education and rent, between trying and giving up because trying seemed impossible. "Yes," she said, "absolutely yes." "Excellent. We'll announce it next month at the scholarship gala. We'd love for you to speak." After she hung up, Emma sat in her office and cried. Not sad tears, not scared tears. Tears of someone who'd finally learned that her story mattered, that her struggle had value, that she could turn pain into purpose. Maya found her like that. "Why are you crying?" she asked, concerned. "Happy tears," Emma said. "They're creating a scholarship named after me." "Of course they are. You're the Emma Vale." Maya climbed into her lap despite being 11 and too big for it. "Are you going to give a speech?" "Apparently." "Good. You're excellent at speeches, very inspiring and stuff." Maya paused. "Can I come?" I want to see you be famous in person. I'm not famous. Maya put a hand over Emma's mouth. We've been through this, Mom. You're famous. Accept it. Emma laughed, kissed her daughter's forehead, and accepted it. The scholarship gala was black tie formal at a hotel Emma had once cleaned as part of a night shift job. She stood in the ballroom where she'd once vacuumed carpets and emptied trash cans, now wearing a designer gown and preparing to give a speech to donors who would fund scholarships in her name. The irony wasn't lost on her. When it was time, Emma took the stage and looked at the audience. Wealthy donors, university officials, scholarship recipients. And in the front row, Adrian and Maya, both dressed up, both beaming with pride. 10 years ago, Emma said, I was working as a waitress. I had no degree, no connections, no reason to believe I'd ever be anything other than invisible. But I had one thing that changed everything. She paused. I had the audacity to believe that what I knew mattered, that my perspective had value, that being self-taught didn't make me less qualified than someone who'd gone through traditional channels. She looked directly at the scholarship recipients in the audience. The Emma Vale Scholarship isn't about giving charity to people who can't afford education. It's about investing in people who see the world differently because they've had to fight for every opportunity. People who spot traps others miss because they've lived in environments where missing them meant disaster. People who ask questions others don't think to ask because they understand that assumptions are expensive. Emma's voice grew stronger. This scholarship is about telling students from foster care, from poverty, from backgrounds that aren't supposed to produce success stories, telling them that they belong here, that their struggle has value, that the system needs their perspective precisely because it's different from the traditional path. She paused, letting the words land. Because here's what I've learned. The greatest innovations, the biggest breakthroughs, the most important discoveries often come from people who approached problems from angles no one else considered. People who didn't know the right way to do things, so they found better ways instead. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't belong. Don't let anyone convince you that your path makes you less qualified. And for heaven's sake, don't stay quiet when you see something wrong because you think someone more credentialed should handle it. Speak up. Trust yourself. Be brave. The world needs what you see. The applause was deafening. After the ceremony, students approached Emma with stories similar to hers. Foster care backgrounds, poverty, trauma, and dreams they'd been afraid to pursue until they saw someone like them make it. I'm starting law school next year, one young woman said. Because of your story, because you proved it's possible. You proved it's possible, Emma corrected. I just showed you what you already had inside you. On the drive home, Maya was uncharacteristically quiet. What's on your mind, sweetness? Adrian asked. I was just thinking, Maya said. Mom went through all that hard stuff when she was young, and it was really unfair, but if she hadn't, she might not be who she is now. She might not save companies or teach people or create scholarships. She paused. Does that mean bad things can turn into good things? Emma and Adrian exchanged glances. Sometimes, Emma said carefully. Not always. And that doesn't make the bad things okay or justified. But sometimes we can take the pain we've experienced and transform it into something that helps other people. Like how you turned being invisible into teaching people to be seen. Exactly like that. Maya nodded, satisfied. That's pretty cool, Mom. You're pretty cool, kid. I know, Maya said. I take after you. That night, after Maya was asleep, Emma stood on the back porch looking at the city lights and thinking about the speech she'd given, about the students who'd approached her with hope in their eyes, about the waitress in Chicago who'd texted her, about Maya's observation that pain could become purpose. Adrian joined her, wrapping an arm around her waist. Big day, he said. Yeah. How do you feel? Emma thought about it, really thought about it. Grateful, she said finally, for all of it, even the hard parts. Because they made me who I am. And who are you? Emma smiled. Someone who matters, someone who sees things others miss, someone who's not afraid to speak up anymore. Someone who changed the world, Adrian added, maybe just a corner of it. A pretty important corner. They stood together in the darkness, and Emma thought about the journey from invisible to essential, from worthless to valued, from afraid to brave. It hadn't been smooth, hadn't been perfect, had involved setbacks and fears and moments when she'd wanted to give up. But she hadn't given up. And that made all the difference. Years later, Emma would look back on her life and see it clearly. Not as a rags to riches fairy tale, but as a lesson in the power of courage. The courage to speak when silence was safer, to believe in yourself when no one else did, to take up space when you'd been taught to stay small. She'd learned that strength wasn't about never being afraid. It was about being terrified and doing the brave thing anyway. That worth wasn't determined by credentials or background or who believed in you. It was determined by what you did when the moment came. That family wasn't about blood or biology. It was about choosing each other every day, about showing up, about love as an action, not just a feeling. And most importantly, she'd learned that being seen wasn't dangerous. Staying invisible was. Because invisible people couldn't change the world, couldn't save companies, couldn't inspire students or create scholarships or prove that people from nowhere could become someone. Emma had refused to stay invisible, and in doing so, she'd become exactly who she was always meant to be. Not perfect, not flawless, not without fear or doubt or struggle, just brave enough to try. And brave enough turned out to be enough.